Alrighty, lower the music. All right. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Sports Goofs number 180. I'm Francisco here, joined by my good buddy Charles. We're here, and I'm tired. It's Tuesday. It's only Tuesday, and I'm already tired. Tired of work, tired of lots of things, but not tired of sports, Charles, because it's been a very, very interesting week of sports. There's some things going down.
I'm tired of sports. I don't know what you're talking about.
You're tired of sports, Charles? What are you talking about? What are you tired about? What's getting your ire that's making you so tired?
I'm just tired of incompetency, right? Remember when there was in the craze of the late 90s, early 2000s, sports for, things for dummies, those kind of books, internet for dummies, everything for dummies. Can't we have a coaching for dummies?
Mm-hmm.
I think that would give a little bit of prediction. And it's not just one.
Yeah.
Not just two, but many coaches. Some that aren't even my own coaches. Because remember, for baseball, the game is over for me. But I need to find something that's going to make me want to watch baseball in the playoffs. And we're not seeing that. Football, you'll see what I'm talking about with the incompetencies. College football, you'll definitely see it. So, the world, it's great. We call everybody idiots without realizing most of the time that we're idiots ourselves. And we are. Let's be humble about it, right? We're not.
Indeed.
Our shit does stink, and it stinks very badly half the time. But
one.
When it comes...
That's your one. You got one.
That's my one. Thank you. You see, even I'm forgetting the new game that we have in here, which was, since the beginning of the new season, we just count our curse words in order to be professionals and better, because sometimes we forget that we're actually professionals. And God forbid, before a bar.
Marvel Strike Force wouldn't like that now, right?
Yeah, Marvel Strike Force
Disney wouldn't like that at all.
Though, granted, they used the F word in their Guardians of Galaxy 3 movie, so I think we get away with some stuff.
They can only use one. That's the rule. They can only use one.
Yeah, but I think it's the only one they have. But the problem is, of course, out of all movies, it's a James Gunn movie, and I would have been petty and not give him the F word, considering the fact that he's leaving. But Disney has to appropriately do it right, I guess, or Marvel or Kevin Feige. I don't know who's in charge anymore. They're kind of incompetent too. So that's the key phrase, incompetency. Even though I'm not incompetent lately, I think I've been more structured and constructed. Even in this show,
season, yeah. You've
so
actually
different.
given your analysis, but I feel like you're going to be a bit unhinged today, Charles, because I've titled this episode "Charles versus the State of Oregon."
Yes. That is a very accurate portrait.
So, music in the background today is from Devil May Cry 5.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I am consuming that game right now, Charles, in the strangest of ways. I'm doing it through Amazon Luna on my Fire TV.
Tell the world how that works out for you.
So, much like the other cloud things, Xbox has xCloud. There's NVIDIA GeForce Now, which I've used a bit, but it's kind of weird and wonky. And then, God bless anybody who bought Google Stadia. Doug got Google Stadia before he got his Xbox Series X.
Bless him for just thinking that Google can actually produce anything aside from a good browser, because you don't do the Google phones, even though my mother likes her Pixel, but it's not my cup of tea. It just looks like a very bulky phone. And then the minute they say we're going to do Stadia, I'm like, yeah, but why? So now you're doing Amazon Luna.
So, well, it wasn't I really wasn't looking for it. So I was just kind of messing around. I'm trying to get across the bridge, right? I'm trying to make it to October 17th. That's when Sonic Superstars comes out. Then 3 days later, Super Mario Wonder comes out.
What a packed month for gaming, kids.
Yeah, I have a feeling that I'm going to beat Sonic Superstars within those 3 days before Mario comes out. So it works out pretty nicely for me. I'll probably inhale both of those games. And then we'll see what happens after that. I really don't have a plan for afterwards, to be honest. I wasn't really planning for this. And the bridge was supposed to get me through. I was going to do Metal Gear Solid 2. Haven't really done that. Work and other things have gotten in the way. Hockey's starting. We got to talk about that because opening night is tonight. It's already started, actually. The Lightning and the Predators opened up today.
Is this the season? Is this the season where I finally just go all consumed into hockey after 5 years?
But you're not getting NHL 24 because I've already sent you the review by Roy, and he's Roy Bellamy, and he's
Well,
been very, very vocal
since
about.
we don't have Mr. Righteous Andrew here, I can state my position about NHL 24. I didn't play NHL 24, 22, 23,
Okay.
21, so I
Fair.
technically get the free pass.
Fair. It would be your first experience. You wouldn't really
Since
have
NHL
any
12?
basis. Yeah, you wouldn't have much of a basis to go on as to what exactly a hockey game should probably look and feel and control like.
And for those who aren't into it, this all started because about a year ago, nearly this time, maybe, or like 10 months ago, I said, hey,
Yeah.
NHL 23 is on sale. And then that was in the private chat. And then Andrew brought it up, saying, don't do it. You're better off doing this. And I'm like, yeah, but this is the newer one, newer rosters. I don't know any of the players really. I can name maybe 10 to 15, right? And they happen to be majority on both y'all's teams.
Probably.
And the guys who I did know actually retired. You know, a lot of them from the Boston Bruins.
Mario
right?
Lemieux.
Yeah, and so I'm like, there goes my clout with my Canucks, man.
Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, right. It's like, Gordie Howe, right? He's still playing.
There you go.
somewhere.
That's Mr. Hockey.
I do that to my father sometimes because my father's not a big sports guy, you know. And I just go to him like, yeah, you know, he's still playing for the Browns. He's like, the Browns? I'm like, yeah, the Browns. And I'll just purposely mess with him.
Your dad's like, they moved to Baltimore, right?
Yeah, my father is like, you know, I came from Colombia, and you know, I was out starting a family when I was 15 years old, and like 1970
Valderrama.
something.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, what's she supposed to do, you know? And my father is like the Colombian who doesn't care about like soccer because he understands
okay.
it's a poor man's sport.
There we go.
And he was probably all
It's all
sad when
controlled
the
by
FARC
cartels.
took his
Yes.
cousins and everything. So I was like, oh, okay.
Well,
Yeah, so there's like the humor. So this is connected, and this is why you guys should listen to our older shows, such as just subscribe, Sports Goofs on Twitch, Francisco, you know, for his little gaming channel, FJOJR.
we're supposed to start actually gaming on the Twitch channel at some point, but we just haven't gotten to it.
You know what the hard part about gaming on the channel? We have to kind of I like to be selective because I've been enjoying Resident Evil. I've been consuming it so much, but
Yeah.
I feel like I lose the intensity of a horror game if I'm streaming it. On a second playthrough,
if you're joking and dicking around with me, and you'll be like, it wouldn't really make much sense unless I'm doing the experience with you. I'm just like, but even then, there's going to be a delay.
yeah.
So you're going to get freaked out, and then I know, okay, something weird is going to happen.
So
the
that's why
jump
I'll
scare won't
send you
work
like
on me.
clips sometimes so you see it. But there are games are out there that will be able to capitalize
Yeah.
on. I have a couple of ideas of how to utilize the mini goofs. Like Mystery Goofs Theater is how I would talk
Right.
about it, right? So there's like Mystery
3K.
Science. So we'll
Indeed.
have Mystery Goofs Theater coming Goop. But this goes into some of the prior episodes, so you can listen. We're on Audible, we're on Apple, we're on anything. Francisco
Anything
is.
that you can listen to.
Yeah, Anchor is the one I always
podcast,
go on.
Spotify, like that's we're pretty much on everything at this point.
So
I've
the running,
I've disseminated us across the world just like Nick Cannon. So
Yeah.
you know,
and Genghis Khan. Soon we're gonna get like that. And Francisco has done an excellent job, and y'all should, give him his subs that they want so badly. So this is the running
Sure,
joke for
maybe.
basically like a full season of it. And Andrew's like, don't do this because I think he's still playing NHL 22 or 21, one of the two. And
He
I'm
has
just like,
the one with Steven Stamkos on the cover, so that's got to
So
be
I
like
think that's
20 or
21.
something
Yeah.
like that.
and I'm just like, I don't know half of these players, so there might be people who are not in the league now in the same teams. I would need it for currency because I think that's the quickest way you can get any person to
Yeah,
go
you're not
from-
gonna get. Yeah, you'll tonight. So let's get into it.
Yeah, this is a perfect way, yeah.
I am playing Devil May Cry 5. I'm 3 missions into it so far because I have a wired connection to my TV. The lag isn't really too bad or noticeable.
Yeah.
Last night it was, but I don't know if that was my dinky Bluetooth controller that I'm using because I can't use
Connect to
my
anything
Xbox
else?
controller. So
It's
'cause
disappointing.
It's Bluetooth, so the Xbox doesn't. At least the one that I have doesn't use Bluetooth. It has its own proprietary thing, and it's like, so I have to either buy a new cheap, whatever controller, or I think the new Xbox Series X controllers,
which I send you a lot of links on.
yeah, they are Bluetooth, and I think the Elite 2 is discounted to like $80 now. So I might bite on one of those just to have a second controller. Plus, I could have a second controller for anybody that even does go into my lair. And so that's fine, but yeah. Anyways, it looks good. It looks good. It runs at it's 1080p. That's as high as it goes.
Yeah.
For Amazon, they don't do the 4K, but even then, it's not really necessary
Well, I
unless
think
you
that game-
really want to like.
The game wasn't really released on a 4K basis. They had to do the update when the newer consoles came out. So 1080p is probably fine. And with a hack and slash, and I know some people are gonna lose their minds when I say this. What really matters more is the frame rate.
Yeah, frame rate and control. So
frame rate. That's all that matters.
But either way, the frame rate has held steady. There's been very few hiccups while I played. The only noticeable thing that I see, and I think I'm gonna play with my video settings, is that there's a lag in the audio. So I'm seeing characters move their mouths after sound is coming out. So that's kind of like throwing me off during the cutscenes.
Yeah, and that wasn't present in the original game. I can attest to that.
Yeah, so it's very much a playing on that sort of basis, and you do have to mess around with your TV because all TVs should have like game modes, because games are so lag. You need to cut down the lag, right? So all the fancy doodads that you put with the TV, like motion blurring, all that type of stuff, that actually slows down things. And when you'll notice, you'll play games, it will look or it'll control really weird. You'll notice that there's a lot of lag between your inputs and that's because you have to turn off all that stuff. Don't worry, the video game console will do all the fancy doodads for you if you've got the TV for it and you've got the console for it. And Charles got the PS5, he's got Ramona, and I've got the gaming PC, and I have a 4K TV, so I should be fine with that. But I'm just
you
some
can get
tips
that OLED TV, the LG A2, $400, $500.
Not yet, Charles. Not yet.
I said that to my paralegal, and I looked. I'm like, "Don't be a pussy." Literally, curse word number 2. I don't say that word that often, but when it came to not buying into greatness, why would you not want to have greatness? I feel like Doc Ock. Anytime I got to Ramona, the power of the sun is in my hands. You can tell I'm ready for that Spider-Man, baby.
So NHL starts today.
Yeah,
I know. I guess we'll open with this before we have your case against the state of Oregon. But
the big O, my ass.
You
faked it.
Very exciting for me. It's nice to have something to cheer about again, because once again I watched the Dolphins out of hatred for the team that I actually like. But the Panthers start on Thursday. Hockey is starting. That's my bread and butter as well, Charles. I'm technically, yes, a media member, so I'm a lot more objective and rational when it comes to my hockey analysis and everything like that, because I've actually had to be, I guess, a journalist. That's weird to say.
Sounds about right.
I'm a journalist over here with an avatar of a guy in a Sonic costume, but
it's better than Bill O'Reilly saying that he's a political analyst.
It's better than Mike Greenberg.
Oh, well, I mean, I think we ended the season talking shit about talking crap about Mike Greenberg, and then lo and behold, it continues, because I saw that clip that you sent. I was just laughing.
So in any case, hockey season has started. The Marlins lost. we'll get that out of the way.
Get out of the way.
The Marlins lost. They only scored 2 runs in 2 games and were outscored 11-2 versus the Phillies. The game 1 wasn't that bad. They only had 1 really bad inning. Aside from that, the Marlins just ran out of gas at the end. We don't have Sandy. We don't have Erie. Luis Arias was literally playing on 1 foot. And Jazz Chisholm Jr. was playing with 1 less toe. So
every time Jazz tries and he prevails, I think of the Black Knight from Monty Python, just but a scratch, because he was in and out on the IL for like all season.
Yeah,
so
but
kudos.
Somehow he's like in 80 games, he was still able to scratch out 19 home runs and 20 stolen bases.
That's the Aaron Judge logic, where he was gone for basically a third of the season. The man had like 35 home runs, and you're like, oh man, if he stayed healthy, he would have broken his own record. Unlike a certain Japanese phenom that everybody said was supposed to be the guy, someone who was supposed to do something, and he's just wasting away in Los Angeles.
Well, he's a free agent, so you better not badmouth him too much now, Charles.
We have no chance.
If he goes to Boston,
they don't even. Please.
All right. Well, in any case, the Marlins lost. I got really melancholy over this last week.
He was kind of sad.
I was really in my feels.
We saw
Charles.
each other, kids. We'll talk about the Goof experience. The reunions.
Indeed, but
he was sad.
I was legitimately very sad that the Marlins lost. Not because I was thinking, we should have won the World Series. That was nowhere near my mind This team was not going to run the table like the Heat and the Panthers did. But this has been a very good baseball season for me, financially, emotionally, social media, clout-wise, if you want to say that too. I feel like I've a lot of people followed me, and I'm very grateful and appreciative of all those people that saw my stuff with the Marlins and hang out, like take my parents to a game and everything like that. Like, I mean, I love the Marlins. They're my first and my number one favorite team, and so having finally connected with them in this sort of capacity it was like, oh man, it was sad to see the end. Not that I was crying or anything like that, but it was just like, oh man, this is really over. And I didn't feel that way with the Panthers losing or the Heat losing, which was, I think that was more out of exhaustion. We were just too emotionally taxed by that point. Mm-hmm. So with the Marlins, it's like, oh man, this is, oh well, I guess 5-6 months from now we'll get back to this now. But hockey season, and there's a lot of stuff happening, Charles, with this season. Opening night, the Lightning and the Predators starting out. I don't know why that game in particular was what the NHL chose, but that's what they chose. They have a triple header with ESPN tonight.
Can I make a Champa Bay joke? Is that what it is?
From all the projections, a lot of people are not picking the Lightning to do much of, to not go very far. Right, I
think the ESPN, which I don't give much clout to, but I think I'll give clout to their hockey analyst, because who on there actually speaks about hockey? You have to actually be an analyst.
And shout out to Barry Melrose. He's out.
Parkinson's, right?
Parkinson's. He's been ESPN's actual hockey guy for like ever, because there was a very long time where ESPN would not talk about hockey at all, and they just trot him out as a token hockey analyst. But he's been in the broadcast game and the analyst game for a long time, and it's pretty sad to see. But
does that mean I'm stuck with Stephen A. Smith making an attempt to talk about a sport that he knows nothing about? I'm saying,
I agree with you. And then like they had Get Up, they had PK Subban on there because hey, look, mind you, PK Subban's really good on TV, and having him on ESPN is actually a good pickup. But
even I know who PK is, so that's something good.
So having him do an actual segment on that show was actually nice to see. And we'll see if ESPN actually cares about hockey, because they sure as hell didn't give a damn about baseball with the wild card round, and that was a big criticism there. But
I think they had no games, right?
They had all the games.
Did they? I have not watched the divisional series.
Yeah,
any of it.
Not the division series, the wild card round. ESPN had the entire wild card round, and they didn't even care about it.
May I just comment real quickly on the wild card thing? I was right about everything. AL East, my ass. I feel good about myself. There you go. That's all I got to say. That's 5. Man, I'm off to a bad start with my cursing. Can I keep it moving, kids?
Well, so I feel like it's not going to get any better.
Maybe.
The subject matter.
But the one thing I want to touch upon with what I saw on ESPN to bring it all together without losing my mind, I'm very focused today. They had the Canes, the Carolina. What the hell am I talking about? Bunch of jerks. The bunch of jerks. Carolina Hurricanes. Yeah, Carolina. Right? That's their name?
Yes.
Yeah. They had them as projected winners for some reason. I don't know anybody on that team because, I have yet to be able to pick up NHL 24, but maybe they'll change.
Well, if they had crossplay, I would have picked it up with you, but
I think I can project it into the show. Mind you, I wouldn't pay price for it, but do you give me weeks of because I didn't want to do wrestling today. I watched the pay-per-view, so if I did that, but I did hockey, I think
you want to grab the PS4 version. You can play with me.
What? Yeah. So I do. Oh, I fell and I died. Damn it!
That would be the only way for us to play. Is if you got the PS4 version, I got the Xbox One.
I do buy. I can't believe I got limited. I do buy some PS4 games if they have free PS5 upgrades, or
I doubt it. I doubt ESPN would do that.
Or if they have at least the 4K. Unlockings of certain things, like if they go to the booster frame.
Yeah.
Like Resident Evil 3 did that. Like Outriders on the Amazon deals, which might be the second half of the game of our show, where I just look at the deal, see if I want to have a free PS5 upgrade for $7.50. That's the game. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll buy anything for $7. I heard it was okay. It just might be a mindless shooter that I play during the show. We gotta diversify our stocks, kids. Not everything can be just arenas and Sifu and wrestling, even though that's a good time. So they have the Carolina Hurricanes, and I think my problem is I was thinking Miami Hurricanes, so I had a mental fart. I was like, no, not yet, Charles. You can't unleash that petty yet. But that is who I think ESPN had projected to be carrying home the Stanley Cup this year. Is this accurate to you? You, Mr.
I mean, they're
teach
very...
me, Mr. Miyagi.
So, I guess I'll run down this list. I think Money Puck always does their playoff odds. So I'm going to go run down this list, and I'll actually go from bottom to top, and then we'll go from there. This might as well be my hockey preview. I always give a winner at the end of it anyways. And the season has started, and I do have to get back into hockey. I've only had 7 days, Charles, to prepare for hockey. I've been so entrenched in baseball that I have no idea what was going on with the offseason for a lot of things. And I am trying to catch up because eventually people are going to want to talk to me about hockey, and I actually need to know what I'm talking about for once.
And why? Because he is Panther historian. So follow him on the Twitter.
Yeah.
At GOGR, Panthers historian, Marlins historian if you're feeling nostalgic. Follow him regular, on sports_goof. Charles the True for me if you want to. I'm trying to be more inclusive, but you know what the thing is? I try to. There's some people that I like in the Twitter, Public Enemies, Humble, and a few other ones. But I don't like really commenting. You know what I mean? I just like the Steelers stuff sent to you guys, but it's like I feel like that's engagement because it's worked before in the past somehow.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, but it makes me feel icky because, as I always tell, my belief in social media is no one cares about my opinions, nor should they ever. And I don't utilize it, whether it be, and I don't do really Facebook. I don't know when was the last time I did a post, years ago. Twitter and stuff like that. I'm like, because I don't think people care. I just use a lot of social media to know when the birthdays are, if I can see cool little things or I get memes.
I think you just bare minimum retweets. A lot of people just do that.
And then Andrew's damp frijoles, we're trying to convince
College
Sweet
football,
Andrew to, even with his obligations, put some bullet points or maybe some thought process under the Goofs.
Yeah.
So it's Andrew's voice, Andrew's segment. Because let's be real here. I'm always angry or apathetic when it comes to college football. You're very apathetic, despite being ranked in the 5. No go Canes. Raising Canes is better right now than Miami Hurricanes. But we need that enthusiasm, right? No, don't die. But continue. Well, I had to put the shilling for us before we can put the shilling for anything else.
Indeed. But I'm trying to catch up with a lot of stuff, and I'm just gonna run by the list. And a lot of these make sense when I'm going up and down these projections, but I won't be able to in depth tell you why.
That's fun. That's actually the fun ones.
Exactly. So, bottom of the list, I'm just going to go by the list of who's going to win the Stanley Cup, right?
Okay.
So they've got the projections.
Give me your final 4.
I'm going to go all 32 teams, right?
All right.
It won't be that long. We're at 23 minutes. We should be good. So, and actually, that's just something I should put on the screen. Actually, this is like a thing that I probably should do, right? That's probably a thing because we're not just in audio format. We're also video. And we've done that for years now, and a lot of people don't do this type of stuff, and you know what, I do, and that's how I differentiate our show from other people's shows, because we do all this silly stuff on the side as well. So let's go back to here, their projections. Let's see, that should be like their first thing that they've got up here. Where is that? Playoff odds. There we go. Alrighty, there we go. There's the list there. So. And they have this great circle graph here to kind of give you a clue as to where everybody stands for, making the playoffs, making past the first round, second, third, Stanley Cup final. And bottom of the list, Charles, are the San Jose Sharks.
Trash.
Yeah, the Sharks are going through a very lengthy and painful rebuild right now. Erik Karlsson has finally been dealt to the Pittsburgh Penguins.
I know him too.
Yes, well, you should
now
know
I have
him.
to tell he's on Pittsburgh.
You should know him. He is in Pittsburgh, and he's part of that ensemble in Pittsburgh that I'll get to. But the San Jose Sharks, long painful rebuild right now. It's probably their first in quite a long while. They've been some of the more consistent teams in the NHL with regards to actually making the playoffs and having some good contenders, but never actually being able to get something done. But
Vegas Knights were the ones who won last Stanley Cup, right?
Yes, they defeated.
Look at that!
Panthers.
It's amazing how quickly it was only 6 months ago, and then I can remember, but then realize, damn, that's a short period of time.
Yeah. So yeah, San Jose, they'll be bad. They'll try and tank, try and win that draft lottery, guys. The Columbus Blue Jackets. So I already talked about the Blue Jackets. That was one thing in the offseason I did talk about on this show before we we got to hear was the whole debacle with Mike Babcock. And
I remember that.
And regardless, the Jackets were not going to be a good team. And Mike Babcock is probably not the best guy to have on a rebuilding hockey team with a bunch of young players taking their phones and looking at their hidden folder.
Yeah, he's like, what's that there, fella? What's that angle?
Yeah. If you're gonna send it, you gotta make sure you got the right angle, else it looks a little too small.
Oh man,
he's got Mike Babcock is in his name, so
Mike Babcock's being the Johnny Sins of like coach porn. Fantastic.
Oh man, the Montreal Canadiens, they are also projected to be bad. They are finished last in the Atlantic Division last season. They're going through a rebuild as well. It's going to take a bit for Montreal to get back into it. The Philadelphia Flyers, so Torts is out. He's gone. The Flyers are also mired in a rebuild that they don't want to be in, but they're going to be in it.
Have they really been like in a rebuild for like 4 years though? Feels like it.
Yeah, they've been mired in it. They've been trying to find ways to kind of get out of it, but it's going to take a bit. The Flyers they had a nice time period of contention, but it's time. The Arizona Coyotes, who are in a perpetual rebuild, as we all know, they don't have a home arena, and they play at a college arena right now with only 5,000 seats, and we don't know what's going to happen in Arizona, where they're going to be, if they're going to stay, if they're going to move. It affects everything
and
that
they're
they
not
do.
the ones who got Connor Bedard, right?
And they did not get Connor Bedard, which would have been really helpful for a team like this. But unfortunately, the NHL is a bit rigged.
Yes. You see, this is 5 years of me learning it, getting it, and soon all I need is a name, baby.
You
I
just
feel
realize that the league is just as rigged as the NFL and the NBA.
And the college football. That was a fumble.
All right, the Anaheim Ducks. I think people thought that they would be a little further along with their rebuild last season, but it didn't turn out that way. But they've got Zegras, who was on the cover of the NHL 23 last year, along with Sarah Nurse, and was a woman crush Wednesday for me. And in any case, the Ducks are still mired in a rebuild. If those young players can stay healthy, can progress, maybe they can surprise people, but but they're still very much not there yet. The Chicago Blackhawks. Now they got Connor Bedard. We're going to see what he does. Everybody's hyping him up, saying he's the next big thing since Connor McDavid. All right, two guys named Connor, and
that's why I think I also get confused sometimes.
Yeah, but in any case, we'll see how the Blackhawks do. They're going through the big rebuild as well, and people were mad at them for winning the draft lottery, especially given things that came to light, but that has nothing to do with Connor Bedard. We'll see, and the Blackhawks are finally entering into it, the post-Patrick Kane era, the post-Jonathan Toews era of Blackhawks hockey, and it'll be interesting to see. Now, further down this list are the Washington Capitals, Charles. So
you mean my boy?
So Ovi.
Ovechkin,
Alex Ovechkin.
But he's near 40 though. It's time to be in the hell.
He's got at least 2 to 3 more seasons to try and break Wayne Gretzky's all-time goals record. He's been, for the most part, healthy his entire career, and the Capitals they're not rebuilding. I can't say that they're rebuilding with a guy like Ovechkin. They still got Backstrom and those guys, but it's very much the twilight years of your beloved Yankees, Charles, around 2012, 2013. Mm-hmm. You know, that weird time period where Jeter was near 40 and, Mariano retires and A-Rod is also can't inject
unceremoniously kept out. Yeah,
and it can't inject into his bum hole and can't get healthy because of it. So there you go. That's kind of where the Capitals are right now. Possibly, like, if everything goes right for them, guys stay healthy, and they've got all these veteran players, sure, they can sneak in and be a 6th seed in the playoffs or something like that, or an 8th seed. Sorry, an 8th seed, a second wild card spot in the playoffs. But people are not projecting them to win the Stanley Cup. It'll be a long shot if they do, but that's where they're sitting at 0.7% of actually doing it. The Detroit Red Wings, I was a bit disappointed by them last season. I thought they were further along in the rebuild, but I guess they aren't. They're still going through a lot of growing pains with that young core, and Steve Yzerman trying to work whatever magic he had in Tampa up in Detroit, so they're still a ways off. The St. Louis Blues are also in a transition period from their cup-winning team back in 2019. A lot of new faces, a lot of old faces that were significant, like Vladimir Tarasenko, are gone, and it's a transition period for St. Louis, but it's not completely dead. They've got a 24% chance of making the playoffs, so it's still pretty much a team that, hey, if things go right for them, if they get some great performances out of some guys, find some surprise pieces or what have you, maybe they can do something with it. The Nashville Predators. So last season the Predators sold at the trade deadline. Mm-hmm. And everybody was like, oh, well, all right, well, Nashville's packing it in. They're not going to go for trying to make the playoffs as a fringe second wild card spot and the final seed, and they'll start this rebuild. Everybody's been saying that they're going to start for the longest time, and lo and behold, the Nashville Predators missed the playoffs by like 2 points.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Which, but it seems to be the way that Nashville's been doing it. So they might not want to do a full-on rebuild. They'll probably just be doing the retooling, which is a rebuild on the fly. All right, some pieces go out, some pieces go in, and then they can kind of stay relevant and every once in a while kind of get that flash of being back to prominence that they were for quite a while in the mid to late 2010s. And I mean, it's a very well-run franchise. Barry Trotz is now the guy at the helm as the GM for the Predators. So we're going to see how he does in his first actual season as an executive, because he's been, the head coach for the longest time, won the cup with the Capitals, and was the Predators' like only head coach in their franchise for like 15, 16, 17 years or something like that. So we'll see. We'll see how things go in Nashville, but it's still a team that somehow finds a way to put it together, because they've been really good at player development and scouting, and somehow they find a way to kind of stay in it when you don't think they're going to stay in it. The Buffalo Sabres.
Trash.
Nah, hold on, Charles.
Weren't they used to be trash?
Oh, they used to be trash
2 seasons ago, right?
But they missed out on the playoffs from the Panthers by like a point last season.
Yeah. Still trash if you're going to hold on to moral victories, but I digress.
Well, after like a decade of not making the playoffs, that is something, Charles.
They New York Jets'd it. Gotcha.
Well, even the Sabres are not as bad as the New York Jets.
We gotcha.
So, in any case, the Buffalo Sabres, they look really good to me, and I find that if they somehow build upon their performance from last season, that I could see a very big jump for Buffalo. A lot, and it's not this projection has them at 40% making the playoffs, but I've seen a lot of other analysts' lists of playoff projections, and a lot of them have the Buffalo Sabres not just as a first wild card or the second wild card. Some people are saying that they might even take one of those 2 divisional spots. Not that they don't project them to win the division, but they could see them making a run at the 3rd seed in the division as a playoff spot. And I think I've seen one with the 2nd seed. I'm like, whoa, that's even more impressive. But Buffalo's finally on the right track after quite a while with Tage Thompson and all those guys. Like they've put together a good team, and they scared me last season because they almost took it from the Panthers. And And I think that'll make them even more dangerous because they saw what happened. Like, we missed the playoffs at one point. The Panthers ran the table and almost won the whole damn thing. Maybe. Is that one? Is that one for me? Is damn?
Yes.
Fine.
No, I'm not counting damn.
Okay, fine.
We don't even say it that much. I'm not counting it.
God says damn, so why can't we say damn?
Yeah.
and yeah, I think Buffalo, I could see them as one of those 2 wildcard spots. I can't place them at a 3rd or 2nd division seed unless the division's not that great. But I can see them at as one of those spots and making that actual step going forward. Next is the Ottawa Senators, another team that's been trying to get back to where they were. They had that surprise appearance in 2017 in the Eastern Conference Finals, but ever since then, it's just been a long rebuild. Their owner died. They're on the sellers market now for new ownership and everything like that. I don't know what the heck happened with Ryan Reynolds. I don't know what's going on. I haven't really been paying attention to it. But the Ottawa Senators are also on the right track. They've got Matthew Tkachuk's brother, Brady Tkachuk, on the team. And
is he good like Matthew, or is he just okay?
He's not as good as Matthew, but I think Matthew is the older of the 2 brothers. But still got those genes, and he's also a good player. And Ottawa did take a step forward as well last season. So the Atlantic Division, if you're looking at it, got better last season, so they should be better this season. Really, the only 2 teams that are not, I wouldn't say are legitimately good, are the Detroit Red Wings and Montreal. But Ottawa should be there. I mean, I think Buffalo's more ahead of them than Ottawa, but this projection has them at 46.9%. I have to look at their offseason pickups. I haven't really taken a look at what's going on with a lot of these teams with their pickups, but I saw that I saw what Ottawa was last season. It was a team that's, once again, much like Buffalo. They're finally in that right direction. They've got some great pieces, and if they surrounded them with more good pieces, then I could say, hey, all right, so that 46% kind of justifies that. Vancouver. So, Western Conference is going to be a bit tougher for me because I cheer for an Eastern Conference team. But, Vancouver is also, I think last season they disappointed more than anything else. I think a lot of people had them projecting to be better. And they had a not great season. They were kind of disappointed. There was a lull. I don't know if they were hit by injuries, but regardless, I think they're kind of 47.4%. I can see that because I think last season was kind of an anomaly with Vancouver. I think they were pretty much just not healthy, and their young players just couldn't handle that. They couldn't handle that very well. So I think 47% is a good projection for Vancouver. So that's a fringe second wild card if they are projected to, if their trajectory is what people thought they were last season. I think that's a reasonable spot for Vancouver. Next are the Tampa Bay Lightning at 51.5%, Charles.
Really? That big of a drop?
It is a big drop. And I'm kind of surprised by it, to be honest, but I can see some of the reasoning. Years and years of long playoff runs. Team is starting to dull out. Vasilevsky's already injured for the Lightning to start out, and you're one of the top goaltender in probably the entire league is out. That's a huge hurdle right there. And it's not that he's out. It's just that he's injured. They've had these long playoff runs. The man is beaten up a bit, right?
Mm-hmm. They went to the finals of the Eastern Conference, correct?
Yeah, and they've juggled around cap hell for quite a while, circumvented it any sort of way you want with long-term IR, and I'm not going to let Andrew get away with that. So, but regardless, I can see why the projections are pretty low. I wouldn't have them at 51%. I'd have them higher.
Yeah, I think if you've been consistent and
you're consistent, yes.
that kind of build up, you got to at least call it a 60 to 70%.
Exactly. I can't see how 51% is that projection with the experience the team has had, and I can't say that the Atlantic Division is any significantly better than they were last season, because Tampa Bay won the 3rd seed in that division. So I don't know. I don't know why people are having them there, because I've seen other analysts with their projections. It's they see the Lightning kind of. I've seen a lot of them having them pretty low as like a 1st or 2nd wild card spot.
Maybe they lost somebody from free agency.
I mean, they've lost a lot of pieces because of
the cap hell.
Yeah, the cap hell, or guys just moving on to other teams and what have you, or retirement. But I can't see why it's that big of a drop aside from that, especially with a team that scouts very well, has a pretty good farm system.
Plus, Cooper's a good coach.
And John Cooper is a good coach, and I don't really agree with that low of a projection for Tampa.
Ooh, you should say I respectfully dissent. Andrew would get a kick out of that.
Ugh.
That's something we saw often in law school, kids. And let's say I didn't cry no tears when someone, a Supreme Court justice, did not exist after some period of time. All I got to say.
All right. The New York Islanders at 55.9%. I think that's very respectable. They won the 4th seed in the division, in the Eastern Conference, not the 4th seed, the first wild card spot, sorry, in the Eastern Conference last season. Good hockey team. They should be right there. They could probably move up a bit depending on how New York and everything does. If one of those teams in the Metro Division kind of messes up, I could see the Islanders kind of picking at them and taking the 3rd seed in the Metro Division. But 55.9%, they were the first wild card last season. It's a good hockey team. Good hockey team that can do some things, can catch a spark if they can, and surprise people with a higher seeded spot. The Seattle Kraken at 56%.
Kraken-lackin'.
They are
second full season.
Yeah, this is the 3rd season coming in now.
Okay, 3rd.
Third
they were
season.
bad the first year, average last year, right?
They were an expansion team the first year, and then the last year they made the playoffs for the first time, made it past the first round.
I feel like this is summer reading, and your teacher's like, all right, what do you remember? I'm like, I remember things.
Yeah.
Huck Finn.
Yeah. And,
okay.
They're just running it back. We'll see what happens. They're opening tonight against the Vegas Golden Knights, who are lifting their banner, and they have the outdoor game later on in the season at Safeco, or T-Mobile, whatever the Mariners call it now. So that'll be interesting to see. Minnesota, 59.1%. So this is a bit of a drop-off.
I can't tell you if the Wilds were good or bad last year. You guys never mentioned them a lot, and that could be because they're a Western team.
Yeah, Western Conference. So I think that's one thing I want to do better is getting to know the Western Conference teams. They were, this is off the top of my head, I think they were the 3rd seed in the Central Division, behind Dallas and Colorado. And that's as much as I can remember from Minnesota. I forgot what they did in the playoffs, to be honest. I think they were eliminated in the first round, as far as I can remember. But anyways, next, the Pittsburgh Penguins, 60.6%.
All right.
This is an old.
They didn't make it last year, right?
They did not make it, Charles.
Look at that! I read my books, teacher.
They pooped the bed in the final game of the season. The Panthers and the Penguins, all they needed to do was win a game versus the Chicago Blackhawks, who were one of the worst teams in the league, and they lost. They lost outright. I think they got shut out. I think, if I can remember. And the Panthers snuck in and made it to the playoffs, and look what happened. So the Penguins, they come in and they get Kyle Dubas from the Toronto Maple Leafs to head their hockey operations now. So that man's now in charge. They got rid of a lot of guys. Ron Hextall and a bunch of people from the front office are like, get these guys, get this trash out of here. And now Dubas is in charge. And he got Eric Carlson, the big trade over the offseason. And the Penguins have a lot of older players now. Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang and now Eric Carlson. So 60.6%, that makes sense. Hopefully, you would think guys don't get injured because as great as Carlson has been, he's been injured. He's been injured quite a bit over the last few seasons, but last season he was healthy and he was great. And Malkin and Crosby, the same thing, right? Those guys all healthy. That's an all-star team right there.
Mm-hmm. For now. I mean, Sidney's what, 35, 36 now?
Sidney is, 36 years old. Malkin is, I think, 37. And Carlson is also in his mid-30s, I think, so or early 30s. But regardless, it's just a bunch of older players and good team if everything goes right and they're all healthy. But guys get down with injury and suddenly that 60%, I can go down to 50%, right? Especially if you lose a guy like Crosby, who is, man, when I see Crosby, I've seen Crosby because my brother-in-law is a Penguins fan. Mm-hmm. So I've seen a lot of Panthers-Penguins games. I
mean, he was the poster child for NHL for me in the casuals for such a long time, and then became the poster child for concussions because even we know that stuff. Yeah, I got brain scrambled around.
Yeah, but I see Crosby is probably the smartest player I've ever seen play on the ice.
He's got finesse, and I will say I've watched some of his stuff when they went to the Stanley Cup a couple times. Obviously, that was the availability that you could watch him in.
If you see him in person, it's not just whether he scores goals or anything like. It's just he's always in the right place all the time. He's very rarely ever in the wrong place. He's always in a spot where he can make a play and make something happen. So when he's out on the ice, I notice him because he's always someplace where, all right, you can feed him the puck and he can take the shot, or he's going to feed the puck to somebody else. He's always in the right spot, and he is the smartest player I've ever seen. He's got the best eyes. Like, he is legitimately the best one. And have I seen Connor McDavid in person? Maybe I haven't. But Crosby, yeah, that's the best one. All right, that's enough personal stuff with me. The Calgary Flames, they're 63.2%. Last season, incredibly disappointing for them. But despite that, they still mustered up like 93 points. And Jonathan Huberdeau is going to have a bounce-back season, I think. He's no longer under Daryl Sutter's incredibly antiquated.
That former Jonathan Huberdeau, who was once part of Panther lore.
Yeah, traded for Matthew Tkachuk in a trade that the Panthers won and did not lose, Andrew. And Huberdeau should have a bounce back season. He's no longer under Daryl Sutter's antiquated style of hockey, so it should open up with the offense in Calgary. It's not a bad team. They probably shouldn't have been as bad as they were last season. Mackenzie Weegar is a fantastic defenseman as well. That's one of the pieces that the Panthers also had to give up for Tkachuk, but it should work out for Calgary this season now with the new coach and everything like that. I don't know who they hired. I have to remember at some point, but Huberdeau should have a bounce back season. Calgary should be good to go. I can't see that team missing the playoffs again. They have too much talent to not make the playoffs. So that 63.2%, the only thing that can get in the way is themselves. All right, that's all I could say about that. They can't, don't be the Tennessee Titans, Calgary. Come on, that's true, Charles. Come on now. They're the only team that can get in the way of themselves.
I mean, I have comments on that for the petty train, but yes, being unable. It's not even being able to evolve. It's not keeping up to the current times will affect any team. Yankees included. Oh, the long ball. When hitters don't hit, you need pitching.
All right, the Los Angeles Kings. good hockey club. Rebuild went swimmingly now. Rebuild on the fly more than anything else. It wasn't very long for the Kings to get out of that. So it's a good, solid hockey team. I can't see them missing the playoffs either. The Pacific Division's pretty good. A lot of good teams, including the Stanley Cup champions as well. So it should be very competitive. There's not really much bad in that division aside from Arizona and Anaheim. So the LA Kings should be good to go. Oh, and the Sharks too. The Sharks are bad. Sorry. So that division, once again, they could realistically send 5 teams to the playoffs. That's how good it is. All right, so Winnipeg. So the Winnipeg Jets, they made the playoffs last season. And I don't know much about Winnipeg's. just to be realistic, everybody. I don't really pay too much attention to Winnipeg at all. Much like lots of people on Earth.
Yeah, this ain't like the New York Jets that for some reason aren't always on my Twitter feed.
Yeah. Let's see Mike Greenberg cover the Winnipeg Jets for once. All right. The New York Rangers. Good hockey club. What can I say? That's a good hockey club. Once again, they were going to bring out a very good team that could win the division if everything goes right. They weren't that far away from actually winning it. It's very competitive at the top of the Metro Division between them and New Jersey and Carolina. And they got great pieces and they could realistically win that division. It's not that far-fetched of an idea. 71.4% of making the playoffs is basically like, hey, you should get in unless something goes horrendously wrong with injuries, but you should get in. The Florida Panthers.
All right, here we go.
72.4% people are projecting us to make the playoffs. I've seen a lot of analysts with their lists. Some have the Panthers not that high.
Okay, but what about a Francisco list?
Well, we'll get there, Charles. But I just want to, I'll give reasonings why.
But you are a real analyst.
I know.
He is a real thing. He's corporeal.
So I think a lot of the projections for why people are having them very low in comparison here they're projecting the Panthers to get 100 points, which should get them one of the top 3 spots in the division. And I've seen a lot of analysts with that for the Panthers, but I've seen a lot of people with the Panthers at first or second wildcard spot. And I can agree with those people that have them pretty low.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the Panthers will get 100 points this season. And my reasoning is because of injuries. The Panthers still are, for the most part, I think everybody's, for the most part, pretty healthy going into the season. But the Panthers are bringing in 10 new players this season compared to what they had last season with the Stanley Cup Finals run. But the most important side of that, Charles, is the defense. All the defensemen that they've brought in. We've lost Radko Gudas. He's no longer with us. So we don't have that edge like compared to before, but I think the guys that are on the team are good enough. But there's 2 very, very big players that are not going to be with the Panthers for for 2 or 3 more months, Charles. And it's Aaron Ekblad and Brandon Montour. Ekblad has, when healthy, can be one of the best defensemen in the league. There was one particular season, and I think if he had been healthy, he would have won the Norris Trophy as the best defenseman. But unfortunately, he always seems to find a way to get injured. And that's kind of been the knock against Ekblad. But I still support the man. I think that he is one of those big pillars for the Panthers. But the
fact that you kept him instead of a lot of the other guys, Huberdeau exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that was some of the people were tossing around those names. You don't get rid of Barkov, you never get rid of Barkov, but it was either Ekblad or Huberdeau. Which one of those 2 are you going to sacrifice to make the team better? And it was Huberdeau in this case. But Ekblad, when healthy, can be one of the best defensemen in the league. We'll see what happens when he does get healthy. Brandon Montour is the same thing. He is also one of the best defensemen in the league. He's had fantastic growth for the Panthers and was absolutely critical to them as far as, especially on the score sheet, with the offense during the Stanley Cup final run. But he's also injured, and that's your top 2 defensemen gone. And you're bringing in a bunch of other guys like Alvin or Ekman Larson.
You almost said Ekman.
Yeah. And defensemen need to get used to, the defensive scheme of Paul Maurice. And remember, the Panthers' defense was pretty bad.
So how
to start the
sidebar
season last season?
Because we never did this on To Learn a Groove, or not last season, but when we originally did this. My belief that there is no such thing as scheme and systems in basketball. Plain and simple. I know there is, guys. I know there is. Please do not think I'm like a talking head. But sometimes the players just got to play. There's concepts and philosophies and stuff like that. Basketball, I feel like there's no defensive, and I always love when they brought in like a defensive-minded coach. Like Tom Thibodeau is a defensive-minded coach. Really? Because I wouldn't put my starting 5 for 42 minutes. But what do I know? And baseball. Really, you scheme around who your pitchers are and the hitters if you have intelligent coaches and managers. I don't know what that looks like as a Yankee fan, so whatever. There are schemes in football. Let's go from there. But in hockey, learning new systems, learning new people, stuff like that, what is it that they're educating players on who've been doing this professionally for a while?
I mean, it's chemistry, one, with your teammates. That's always number one, I think, more than anything else. 2, it's positioning and how exactly you're going to handle the puck in certain situations, right? Some teams are, depending on, I think they have 3 guys back or 2 guys back, just depending on how they kind of situate their schemes. And it also depends on your goaltender as well. I mean, if you've got a Vezina-level goaltender in front of you, you're going to rely heavily on them. Your defenseman can kind of worry about moving the puck along on the boards or anything like that, and just letting him see whatever's coming in the middle. Getting the sticks on the ice, it's a pretty much that, but I think it's an intensity thing as well. Some coaches are just defensive heavy. You're very intense on the defensive end, trying not to allow any shots or anything like that. While other coaches, there's shots all over the place, but you're trying to get the puck moving out of your zone as quickly as possible. So it depends okay. on that. But the Panthers took a while to learn Paul Maurice's style of defense, and you didn't really see it until like that last month of the regular season and in the playoffs.
Well, but if they learned
even
at the right
then,
time.
It took a lot of puck luck. And that's another thing with hockey. You can have all the defensive scheme in the world, but there's a lot of variation with that puck, and sometimes things don't go your way. So there's very much luck-based when it comes to hockey, which I would assume would make it a great sport for gambling, which is what the NHL is trying to do, much like all the other leagues. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know if I can see the Panthers doing that. The defense is suspect until mid-season, I would say. And then you're going to have another mad dash to the finish like we had last season. 100 points, I don't know. I would put them at 95. The team's not bad, but they're going to have to do a lot of catch-up when it comes to that. Unless they prove me wrong, when maybe these guys get the system pretty quickly, especially with all the forwards and everybody else getting used to it. But also the goaltending is also still a bit suspect. Spencer Knight is not starting off the season with the Panthers. He's down in the AHL because he needs to continue working on his craft. He's still 22-something years old, so he's young. And Sergei Bobrovsky, who had a resurgence during the playoffs, is still kind of so-so to me right now as far as the regular season. Because remember, he wasn't the one getting the Panthers into the playoffs. It was Alex Lyon.
He was doing pretty bad. He was not your Bobrovsky. He was not your bro.
Yeah, and Lyon's not on the Panthers roster anymore. He's moved on. And, yeah, where did he go? I think he went to Ottawa or some weird place like that. Anyways, the Colorado Avalanche, right ahead of Florida, 99.1%. I think people are seeing a bit of a regression for Colorado. They won the Central Division last season.
They won the Stanley Cup 2 years ago.
Indeed. They did win the Cup 2 years ago, Charles, so I don't see the Avalanche It's still at 99.1%. That's still good enough for second or third seed in your division.
Do you think, and this is not a shot at Andrew the Lightning, but do you think the idea that you can go for a three-fer as a representative of whatever conference you're at really diminishes the idea of how to analyze and the expectations of defending either runner-ups or champions? Because it's very rare for them to always kind of be in that gig. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, it is very rare. I mean, the Houston Astros are another team that you can be like, hey man, they're always there, they're always in the American League Championship every year.
We're trash.
But Colorado is also a team that can do that. They've been. I've always chosen them as a Western Conference finalist.
And do they not? They're the ones with Connor McDavid, right?
No, they're not. No,
who do they have?
They have Nathan McKinnon.
McKinnon, all right.
You're getting your Connors and your Max confused, and I know.
Listen, that thing that just sent me about the Finnish pronunciations.
Yes, the Finnish.
If
that's
only
a great video.
people. So, for those who are new to the show, the running joke is that even though I am an attorney, even though I'm actually eloquent when I speak, surprisingly, and even though I have a last name that for some is difficult to pronounce, I just butcher a lot of names, especially if it's my first time pronouncing it without even hearing it phonetically. And a lot of times that happens either when we're talking about New Japan Pro Wrestling or hockey players. So, yeah. And I have nicknames for people. It's the same way of me watching Bleach, where there's all these characters, and I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to say Xylosporo? And that's a real character, Xylosporo. And I'm like, Xylosporo? I'm like, Notoria? So I just have nicknames. Pink Hair Scientist, Tori. It's just terrible. So I'll make nicknames for these people, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Oh, that guy." Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that's Colorado. They should be fine. All these top teams now are like, yeah, these guys should make the playoffs, barring some disaster. The New Jersey Devils, who had a big leap last season, suddenly looking like, hey, they've got all the young core is good. You got the Hughes Bros. Fantastic for them, and they should make the jump. They should make the jump. They weren't that far off from making that Eastern Conference final, and yeah, that's a team that should be good for quite a while. Moving on here, so New Jersey has done a fantastic job with their rebuild, and now it's finally hit. It's finally hit better than what's going on with the Baltimore Orioles.
Oh man, that makes me feel so good.
All right, the Boston Bruins. So
a lot of people retired.
Well, yeah, yes, some big guys retired from Boston, and Krug and Bergeron, and it's a new era, but Brad Marchand is still there to lead the charge from here on out. But it's still a team that's not going to fall far off. They're not going to have a historically great season again. That's very much near impossible, and now I think a lot of teams are looking at it like, do we really need to have a historically great season we just need to get in the playoffs and then be historically great.
We just need to win in the playoffs, which is what they did not do.
Yeah, so, take the Philadelphia Phillies mindset, except not choking away the last 4 innings of the game. Mm-hmm. And just, hey, get in, and that's it. We don't have to make all these records in the regular season and then completely poop the bed, which is what Boston did. So to much of my delight, for sure. But it's a new season, Charles. I'm back to being a rational analyst.
You know what else is rational?
Not changing
Strike Force.
Well, yeah, but not changing the Boston TD Garden Wikipedia. Getting banned from editing.
We never did any of that.
No journalistic integrity from me. Oh boy. In any case, yes, the Bruins should be fine. That's still very much a dangerous hockey club. I'm surprised there are some people having them at lower in the first or second wildcard spot. I don't see how that's possible. The Dallas Stars. Dallas Stars are good. They have a great young goaltender, and they might win that division in the Central. And are, once again, another team that should contend for the Stanley Cup. I like Dallas's team very much so, just as long as Jamie Benn doesn't screw them over with being a dick on the ice. That's 2. That should be fine.
Are we counting dick in that way?
Yeah, because you're you're calling it, yeah.
I don't know, man.
I'm,
Like we
I'm
need to talk about terminology.
Way. I'm saying it in an insulting way. I'm not calling him like Dick Van Dyke.
It's just really like it's really. But I'm talking about Dick as a phallus. Like if you say S my D, if anybody sees semi-pro, here you're saying.
But isn't that
you're calling him a jerk with salt?
I don't know. I count it. I'm counting it for myself.
Okay, we'll let you count it.
Fine.
Gosh darn it.
All right, the Toronto Maple Leafs. There.
You talk about people who blew their load too early.
Yeah.
You see, it's not a curse, but it's a way of using it, kids.
They're at 6.9% chance of winning the Stanley Cup here. Of course, 80% to make the playoffs, and they should make the playoffs. But it's not just about making the playoffs for the Leafs anymore, Charles. They made it past the first round for the first time in forever, and they were excited. They wanted Florida, Charles, and the Panthers. They gave them Florida, all right. So now...
all 90-degree balls hot weather. So it is October, man. You don't believe in global warming? I'm literally sweating to death here. Jesus.
So the Leafs really have to do something this year, Charles.
So here's my question. When you say you're playing for keeps in these high-end championship games, but if you have nothing worth keeping, what's the point of setting these high expectations? Because that's been the running joke for 5 years. The Maple Leafs, out of all the Canadian-based teams, are always the one who are closest to helping bring Canada back a Stanley Cup trophy than ever. We don't talk about the Winnipeg Jets. We don't talk about the Ottawa Senators. We don't talk about, the Oilers and all that stuff. It's always, when it does come in reference, it always seems to be the Maple Leafs. Mind you, this is what I remember.
Well, it is the Leafs and the Oilers. The Oilers, because legitimately with those two superstars that they've got, should. And the Leafs, because with the team that they've built, they should actually make it past the first round more than once in 20 years. And they've signed their superstar, Austin Matthews, to a long-term deal, so he's there. He chose to stay there instead of going home to Arizona, which was, as much as it seemed like a long shot, was probably the second best possibility for him, was to go back and save hockey in Arizona, which would have been a miraculous story. But he chose to stay in Toronto, the center of the hockey universe, much like the New York Knicks think they're the center of the basketball universe. But the Leafs actually have the team to back it up. And I can't say much else other than, yeah, they should do that, but what's going to go wrong and how are we going to laugh at them, and how many more memes are we going to get from it?
It's probably going to be first round exit this time.
And that's why they want to win the Atlantic Division. It seems like that's the ultimate goal for them, is to win the Atlantic Division, because then they don't have to contend with the Boston Bruins or the Tampa Bay Lightning, who've been their daddies over the last few times. The Panthers became their daddies last season, so they don't want to contend with even Florida.
Could you even say that they became the daddies, or the guy who stayed over mom's house and then took your fruit juice the next day?
Either way, you want to say it. That's probably a funnier way of describing it.
Well, because the whole time, I say it that way because no one ever gave you guys that belief that they could do that crazy run. The expectations in the East, I don't know what I feel like Andrew's just using some psychic powers to get me to even analyze this stuff.
Even then, like the Panthers in the regular season were still able to contend with both Boston and Toronto. So it wasn't,
but
it wasn't like they swept us during the season. It was like 2-2.
In the preliminaries, though, for the last couple of years, the idea that the Eastern teams that were really going to be any big competition was going to be Tampa, Pittsburgh, and then Rangers, from what I recall the last couple of years, right? Maybe the Islanders. Yeah, it was one of those New York teams. But the idea, that's why I think the arrogance of the Maple Leafs fans of give me Florida, happened. So that's why I'm going to use, he stole my drink. Mom, he stole my Capri Sun.
Well, I mean, but at the same time, I was objectively looking at the Panthers matchup against Toronto. It's like, well, this isn't going to be a blowout. That's just based on what they had done during the season, and especially with the Panthers in a lot of transition, because the Leafs have they were pretty much the same team they were the entire season going into the playoffs. And the Panthers transformed into their final form during the playoffs and beating Boston. But
this isn't even my final form.
Yeah, exactly. And then, well, at third are the defending champion Vegas Golden Knights. And yeah, I mean, that team didn't lose many pieces from their Stanley Cup final run. They're going to, for the most part, run it back. There's not really much stopping them from doing it again, aside from, well, maybe a team ahead of them right now in this list. And yeah, gosh, man, now that we're months out since it, Charles, because there was a lot of hatred coming out of me for Las Vegas and the Golden Knights.
Yeah.
And now I'm looking back and I'm like, I can't really hate that team.
You have been exercised.
I can't really hate that team. They're a very solidly built franchise. They ran the team incredibly well. The Vegas fans, as much as they're all brand new, they're all like, there's not really much hatred coming from them or anything like that. And the only people who are really hate them are just people in like Toronto that are just jealous that they got theirs in 6 and they've been winning 50 plus years to get one, you know. I really can't hate Vegas and what they've done. So, yeah, but they're up there at third, and yeah, that's a reasonable spot to put them at. That or top spot, either way. They have all the capabilities of running it back. All right, the Carolina Hurricanes. So let's try this again.
And now for something completely different.
So the Hurricanes I've been here time and time again. It seems like they just can't find a way. And last season was probably the most frustrating way for them to lose in the playoffs because
first round bounce out.
No, they lost to the Panthers in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Okay, I don't remember that one.
And they lost all of those games by one, or I think Game 3 was by 2 goals. But
were they the ones who went to like OT and double OT?
Yes.
That was a few. All right,
quadruple overtime game against the Panthers.
And Francisco was literally
overtime in Game 2.
Even your eyelashes were going gray out of anxiety.
And then Game 3, the Panthers were able to win, at least not by 1 goal. And then, of course, 4 seconds to go in Game 4, and they got swept. So any other circumstance, the Carolina Hurricanes, just one bounce here and there, and it would have been them in the Stanley Cup final against Vegas. So that was probably the most frustrating thing. So they're running it back once again, Charles, because they are very, very close to doing it. And I can see why they're at the top of this list, but they've got to finally get through this window somehow, some way.
So they're the Buffalo Bills of hockey right now.
Essentially, because they're sitting on it right now. They're at the precipice of finally doing the thing. Just something always gets in their way. And last season, it was just the Panthers got hot. They got hot. They got the bounces, and Matthew Tkachuk was it was Matthew Tkachuk. It was him. It was him. And finally, the Edmonton Oilers, the top spot. 7.9% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. And yeah, 2 superstars, Draisaitl and McDavid.
They have Connor McDavid.
Yes.
And they have Andre Draisaitl.
And, making it to the Western Conference Final. And they're a team that is also kind of just been knocking on the door. And they should be here. They should actually contend for the Stanley Cup, but they just haven't. They've always found a way to kind of poop the bed themselves, much like Toronto. And yes, the dream for Canada would be Edmonton versus Toronto, but I don't want that to happen, Charles.
Yeah, we're not like Hank Hill.
I need the memes to keep going. So yeah, that's my hockey analysis, Charles.
All right, so what's the?
We're an hour and 15 minutes.
Give me your final 2.
Final 2 Stanley Cup final between the New Jersey Devils and the Dallas Stars.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
I think we're going to see Ottenberg become the next coming with regards to goaltending. And the New Jersey Devils core is going to finally make that next jump and get it together because I really like what they're doing. And their head coach is certain Andrew Burnett, who coached the Panthers not too long ago. It's a historic amount of goals scored and everything like that. It should be interesting with the Devils. And yeah, that's my pick. As much as I want it to be the Panthers, I find it very difficult unless they find a way to do it again.
Look, it's very hard to ever pit your own fan base as someone who's let alone the finals, but let alone the finals winner as well.
It's the defense and the goaltending for me. I don't know if Sergei Bobrovsky's got that type of run in him again because he was on top of the world for 3 rounds, and then
he pooped the bed.
Well, I can't say he pooped the bed. I think the Panthers just ran out of gas, and there was nothing more left to protect Bob in front of him. But we'll see. Or maybe Spencer Knight finally takes over and something, All right, we're at an hour and 16 minutes. It actually took longer than I thought. It was actual analysis on this show. That's so weird. That's sports.
Considering the fact that we didn't give any true analysis of predictions on baseball, we just said that the Yankees were going to suck. So that was literally my analysis. And then in basketball, you and I predicted the Heat are going to be in it. I thought semifinals. I didn't think it would go as far as it did. And then football, I know where my team's going. It's either going to be entering the representation of the AFC South or it's going to be 7-10. So this is the good kind of stuff because one, it's well-versed. What you will get out of the Richard Nixon of Sports podcast, ladies and gentlemen, this is a sponsor to ourselves, is that you're going to get some decent analysis, but I think we also have an understanding of how the leagues play out and some teams in the leagues. It's not just can I burn? Can I burn some bridges? Am I allowed to burn some bridges?
Yeah, whatever.
We're not going to have some time on ESPN just about the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys and just laugh about it every time. Because that's what I feel is the objective analysis is just this petty fake ass rivalry 5-6 rivalry in sports. Because, my belief is that there's no such thing as rivalry in sports. You should hate every team. That's the killer instinct. Everybody's your rival. But, mind you, the Giants are 1-4 and Dallas is not so good, but we rather trade these barbitures without doing real life analysis of certain players, coaches. And here at the Richard Nixon of podcasts, a sports podcast, we actually do give you some analysis. You mentioned Andrew Burnett, right? For whoever New Jersey Devils, you had your basis to it. You get that a little bit here, just with a twinge of dishonesty and some dark deeds.
I think I might be confused. No, he was. Gosh, where did he go to? He's not with the Devils anymore. He was on there. I forgot who he's with. He went to somebody.
Now
this is why I'm still reacquainting myself with all these teams, Charles.
And this is why we're the Richard Nixon, because sometimes we don't know if we took those documents.
But either way, my analysis on the Devils is
on point.
For the most part, on point.
Watergate. This is our Watergate conspiracy. It's okay, but that's the point, folks. You're going to get some different stuff out of us here. We're not going to just be jabbing rivalries and focusing on fantasy football points. It's imaginary.
We're at an hour and 20 minutes, Charles, and we can't take too much time now, but I do want to do a word from our non-sponsors. People, places, things, causes, what have you. We've been doing it last week. Oh, boy. So, I thought it would be certain things, but regardless, for me, I want to talk about this, but we won't have time. We won't have time to talk about this.
Maybe we could talk about it.
No. It was something other thing about the NHL, but I took too long with the actual analysis, so never mind. Well, in any case, you go, Charles, because I'm trying to find my notes.
So it is not Resident Evil 4.
Okay.
Not yet. Almost, and it will get there. Right now, if you guys want to know, because we all know the rules. I can't give it a sponsorship until we finish it because I've played games where they don't stick the landing. I've played games that they're boring and they get interesting at the end. I get games where they're great in the beginning. They lose a lot of momentum coming into it. And I feel like I owe it to us, and I feel like I owe it to a lot of people to be objective. But, am I allowed to do 2 or am I doing 1?
We only really have time for 1 because we're at I'll do 20.
1. So it is spooky season. So instead of doing the video game, I spent my Sunday after seeing you guys and then going to other things. We are watching some spooky movies, and I watched Talk to Me by A24. It's a horror movie that they have, and it was different. I don't really care for horror movies. I don't really care for like the spooky. I can't live that energy all the time, but I can live it in October. I can watch scary stuff. I can play spooky games. When I am done with Resident Evil 4 and done with its standalone DLC separate ways, I'm going to finally watch Midnight Mass, which I heard was very good. I'm going to skip the Blythe Manor, House Manor, Haunting Hill stuff. No, I'm just going to go with that because I heard Midnight Mass was better. And that's going to lead me to Spider-Man because October 20th, spooky's over. Now we're just going to go back to wearing costumes. It wouldn't be a surprise if I'm playing Spider-Man. I'm just dressed up as Spider-Man starting it. I should just send a photo of that just because I have a Spider-Man costume still. But so without giving too much into it, Talk to Me is about these young cats, Australia in high school, who, you know, as you see in the trailer, they touch a possessed hand, and they go and say, "Talk to me," and they see the spirit, and it's only that person who holds it that sees it. And it could be anything go from there. And you as a viewer don't see it all, right? You only see from the perception of whom they choose to have you be the perception of. And then they tell that spirit, "Let me in," and let that spirit possess you. And the way they pull it off is that it's more of an addiction. It gives you that kind of a high as that possession. So I think it has some good subtleties. And it was just very interesting, very well acted, very well directed. When it was gory and nasty, it was gory and nasty. When it was intense, it was intense. The acting was good, especially from the lead actress who plays Mia. It didn't cheap out. There's some questions that I have, of course, but I think the problem is that when you go looking for 100% answers in a horror movie, you're missing out. But I don't care for slasher films. I mean, I like the Scream series and stuff like that. I've talked about Scream 5. It has been non-sponsored in the past, and Scream 6 was fine besides being overly done. My problem with like slasher movies is that the logic completely gaps out. Like that's why I can never get behind one of the recent Michael Myers movies, the Halloween ones, because like a whole town gets eviscerated by Michael Myers. No, y'all need to like show them hood rat style and jump them straight up. One guy cannot handle 6 pipes. I'm just saying. But this one's dealing with ghosts, dealing with spirits. Maybe my little bit of my Hispanic interactions in Jackson Heights, Queens, and Miami can feel this a little bit. Maybe I've seen some, chickens disappear. Maybe I've been hearing some of that music in the background, seeing some candles lit of all varieties, that with the Roy B. G. Bivs of candles. If you go to Miami and you go to their Publix, you have a special candles section that some of them have the saints and some of them have the yellows and the blues and the reds and the greens. Maria, yeah, every saint out there, and I'll give all the names. But with this movie, it had a unique idea, but to utilize the standard concept of spirits and possessions and everything of that nature in a horror movie. And I think it's something. It came out in July, and I hate the idea that movies come out that are intended to be horror movies early. I think you miss a lot of money. Granted, cinema's dying because we just want to stream everything and not bring it back into theaters. But we watched it on the OLED, my buddy's OLED, his Ramona. I wonder, I should ask him if he named hers. But we watched it in there, had the sound bar, had the sound effects. Everything was just fun and dandy. And I felt it, and I was thinking about it, and it spooked me a little bit, which is saying something, because it wasn't like cheap pop scares. There were some realistic concepts of, what happens if you do die? Is there a connected world? Is that little goosely prickle pumps that I feel in the back of my neck or my shoulders? I get that little shaking that comes in. Goose prickles is what they call it, right? Or goose pimples. So I'm like, is there something connected to me? And you gotta understand, for some people, their version of death is like, okay, you go up to heaven, right? And that's it, or you go to hell. For others, in any kind of religion, beliefs, or cultures, it's like the dead still walk amongst you. It's a different dimension. It's coming into it. Like your loved ones never leave you. They're always watching over you. Have a candle if you're having a hard time. Drink some honey. Leave a bottle of water or a glass of water to get the evil spirits out. I can vibe with that. You know what I mean? That movie made me just kind of think of it in a unique way. Like I said, they've already kind of greenlit a sequel. I don't want a sequel. I don't know how you do it, but I think the movie does something excellent as well. It deals with the concept of anxiety and grief and depression, unlike a certain overrated spooky movie. The Babadook is trash. I'm just going to say that right now. And I have people trying to sell me. I'm like, no, that movie's execution was poor and it was cheap. And the reason why I attack it on my non-sponsor, it's a don't watch it kind of sponsorship, is because of how bad done it was, but everybody hyped it up. Whereas Talk to Me, if you haven't seen it, I encourage you guys to see it, because this is coming from somebody who doesn't really vibe with the horrors. But proper toning, proper script, proper acting, enjoyable, didn't feel cheap, and it makes you think. And the ones that are thought-provoking, any form of media, literature, television, movies, audiobooks, video games, the ones that you think about after the fact, unlike a drug where just a quick hit, this is something that you grow with and you develop and you'll think on it. Maybe you want to watch it again. So that's my non-sponsor. Talk to me. I don't think it's on streaming service yet. I won't say that we pirated it, but it might have been pirated. But, pay it when you can pay it. Promo code Witch Doctor.
All right. So I just kind of strong because I guess I thought I wrote it down, but I didn't. But I'm just gonna call an audible here, and I'm just gonna say my Sit Mod gaming chair.
Oh, I thought you were going to do that, but yes.
I didn't do it. I think I mentioned it, but I never did it. Like, I never did it, right?
Well, it is. So, that sounds like the summer camp kids. But yeah, that joke's going over people's heads. But this is good. You sit on that chair. Your bum needs to be comfortable.
I've been sitting on this chair all season long, Charles, and it has made a difference right now. But it's a combination. It's the chair, and it's also the seat cushion that I bought before this for my old chair. The combination of that along with the chair is definitely making it good. So yeah, the Sit Mod gaming chair, this is one of the ones you had sent me, Charles, and it's relatively cheap right now. It's $118 and it's here on Amazon. And yeah, so this is the Sit Mod gaming chair. As you can see, it comes with a head pillow up here at the top, but that's optional. You can take that off if you feel like it. You've got the ergonomic back design. You got the lumbar support right here as well. And a little thing about this lumbar support here at the bottom, Charles, is that it's also a massage thingy. So you just plug in the USB into a power source, and suddenly it is shaking. You can kind of have yourself a nice little massage if you feel like it. You've got the actual seat here, but I felt like it was maybe a little too flat for my voluptuous bum, so I used the seating pad that I already had before that. You've got the armrests here. They're padded as well, so that you're not laying down on hard plastic or anything like that. So nice and soft, not too cushiony, but just good enough for me to kind of rest and be comfortable on. And of course, you've got all of the settings here on the bottom. You can lower it up and down. Of course, it's a rolly chair. And you've got the lean back option, right? And this thing leans back, Charles. All right.
If my hips don't dance, I just pull up my pants and do the rock away. You set it up. I can't say no to
back. And I do lean back with this, Charles. It goes pretty flat, actually. I was very surprised by how much it goes backwards, but it's relatively comfortable, especially at the angle I can put my TV at. And I can have long gaming sessions without feeling that I need to get up. I probably should get up. But I don't have to. I'm not in much pain. We do these shows. These shows last about 2 hours. And I'm not in any sort of back pain after doing so, or bum pain as well, from sitting down for so very long. And it's probably the culmination of me trying to get my back right. Had the chiropractor, that was already a non-sponsor. Had the gym, which is already a non-sponsor. Now we've got the chair.
Yeah, I feel like you're not you anymore. I remember when you used to be unhealthy, uncomfortable, contorted like a goddamn pretzel. Yeah, there
you go. You can see how flat it can kind of get there. And it's got a little footrest as well you can pull out from the bottom there. So there you go. And yeah, so that's the Sit Mod gaming chair. It's been really good. I've been playing a lot of video games, just sitting down here. I don't have to sit down on my bed and ruin my back that way either, unless I'm being really lazy. But that's when I'm about to go to sleep. But for actual long gaming sessions for 2, 3, 4 hours, yeah, this is the way to go for me. And I'm very happy that I got this. I'm very, very pleased with this purchase. And this chair is going to go with me places for sure. So yeah, promo code voluptuous bum. All right. So we're at 1 hour and 30 minutes, Charles. And well, the petty train's gonna be not as long as we thought, but I do want to get to the actual title of this show. Charles versus the state of Oregon. Because well, we talk about football, but we talk about the NFL. We don't talk about college football. And something went down. Which oh man. Who should set it up, Charles? Do I set it up? Do you want
you set it up?
All right, so
because I was watching a pay-per-view and checking it on Twitter.
That's true.
You saw
That's true. You were preoccupied with a different event.
I was literally like, "Oh, cool, we're gonna win this." That was literally me. I'm like, because I thought I called it a trap game.
So Saturday, so Saturday, college football, all over the place. My beloved Seminoles did what they needed to do and won.
Good job, Mike Norvell.
Exactly. Andrew's not here, so we won't talk about UCF.
Oh, they can't handle the Big 12. I'm sorry. Just because he's not here, it doesn't mean I'm not going to say I've been absolutely right.
Oh, man.
Because I'm going to go on this. I'm going to go on the petty, because this is not just for UCF. This is a lot of teams that got absorbed into the Big 12. Oh, they can handle it. Oh, we're ready. We're getting all the good transfers. The transfer portal is going to open up. We were, national champions. Blah, blah, blah. Gus Malzahn. Well, the chickens have come home to roost. Welcome, and unfortunately, it was the Kansas Jayhawks. The Jayhawks have come and they are plucking them chickens. What was it, like 20-something to 6? Ooh.
Yeah.
And that is, ladies and gentlemen, the issue of conference realignments that I think, Oklahoma and Texas are going to have when they go to the SEC?
Yeah, they're leaving.
Because this is every time, every generation, every team, all these people.
All the Orioles getting eliminated.
Are they?
It's 6-0 Texas. It's going to be a sweep.
Look at that, baby.
It's going to be a sweep.
Who is right to say the AL East was all trash? Me. Who is right to say that I have nothing to worry about? This wasn't our season. We're not filling in the cellar. And guess what? We could possibly be back next year because it's not continuous and consecutive on who's on top. Me. This is good. I'm alive, Francisco. I had Wendy's Goat Ranch chicken pepper chicken sandwich. I get to go buy stupid video games I don't need. I get to talk crap about the AL East. I get to also talk crap about UCF and the other teams. Yeah, we feel it. Now continue.
All right. Well, that's what happened. But there was another game that was going on. It seemed fairly innocuous. It was the Miami Hurricanes versus Georgia Tech and the Yellow Jackets. And I saw the crowd, guys. I was leaving Miami, going to West Palm Beach. I saw the police parading or helping the Georgia Tech football players coming down the road on the other side. So I was looking at them like, oh, okay, yeah, they're going to play. All right, Georgia Tech's probably going to lose to Miami, and we'll call it a day, and there you go. So Charles was preoccupied. He was watching a pay-per-view. Having fun, as he always does with his pay-per-views, right? He has himself some good food, some good drinks, and sends me a bunch of stuff on the group chat.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at home with my sister's place, preoccupied with all that, baseball playoffs happening too. And it's like, okay, fine, things are happening. And like towards the end of the night, it's just like, well, let me look on Twitter and see what's going on with this Hurricanes game. It's 3-0 at halftime. What the? It's 3-0 at halftime. Well, that's a bit odd, but Charles, before the game had started, you had sent on the group chat, and there are receipts that you said that this was a trap game. This was before the game had started, and 3-0, and it's like, okay, and then you felt justified right there, just a tiny bit, and then the game moves on, and Georgia Tech takes a lead. So, oh man, but then the Hurricanes find a way to rally back, take that lead back. All right, and suddenly they've got the game under control, Charles. All they got to do is just ice the game with just a simple kneel.
At 5:30, I said that's a trap game.
Indeed.
Calling it. And
all right, he looked back. There we go.
You see Mario Cristobal saying the U is back.
So the U is back. That's what everybody was saying. Everybody was scared.
Did you appreciate my wrestling memes?
I did. I've the new ones that you've got a nice batch of wrestling memes. But The U is back. Right. So that's what everybody's. That's been the mantra for 20 years. So I was like, okay, well, and I was going back home to my parents' place because like the kids are already gone to sleep. I was like, okay, fine, And I looked back on Twitter and I saw disaster had struck. The Miami Hurricanes fumble the ball. Georgia Tech regains possession and then goes, 70 yards for the score.
Yeah, just like one big drop.
One big drop.
Loses to a second.
And people throwing trash on the field. Booing. And,
like, why are you even throwing trash? Oscar the Grouch loves trash.
The Miami Hurricanes found a way to lose a game to Georgia Tech in the most awful way possible, but probably the funniest way possible. That masked every single loss for every other college football team that lost on Saturday. That masked pretty much every single loss for every NFL team that lost, for every baseball team that lost. I was happy as a Marlins fan that the Hurricanes lost that way because it was not the most embarrassing way for a South Florida team to lose during the week. It was fantastic. The Miami Hurricanes did everyone a great service by losing the game the way they did. And Charles was justified in everything that he's been saying since Mario Cristobal had been hired by the University of Miami. And but at the same time, Charles is a bit peeved because the state of Oregon has found a way to make him unhappy once again. And I'll leave it at that, Charles.
So this is where I'm going to take my lead. Let me have the mic and let me have my soapbox because it's all I need, because everybody's got to be a martyr in Miami, and I am that guy who will be the martyr in Miami. I should really have a segment called Martyrdom in Miami. No, kids. It ain't about any kind of immigration rights or religious situations. It's about Mario Cristobal, being a pain in the ass for the Miami Hurricanes. 2 years ago, man's announced, or a year and a half ago, was announced as being Miami Hurricanes coach. And what was me? And what was my reaction? Okay. The guy who just lost his bowl game in Oregon despite no one sitting, despite, sometimes when he had accepted a job, but he still wanted to coach this guy and he just screwed that all up. I'm like, okay, fine. First year, you get this is the problem when you get the sexy new coaches that comes into it. And even Andrew's feeling the situation with Gus Malzahn, just because you've had some modicum of success doesn't mean you're going to get all the best transfers. You're just going to get guys who transfer over. You're going to get recruits, but you still have to institute a culture, a program, a training. You have to be a coach, and you have to have game situational awareness. And the last couple of weeks in the chat and on the show, what have I said? A lot of my reactions have been, oh, God, Miami Hurricanes are a pass-running team. I'm going to throw up because the identity has always been kind of like tough football and just run the ball a lot for the decades that they're around. The last great, quarterback I would say is Ken Dorsey is what we had going around. And that was the recognition. We're not supposed, just like for you guys, you had Wenke. We you've had a lot more producible quarterbacks and productive quarterbacks. And when I say producible programs, I'm talking about like there's quarterbacks who get drafted. Christian Ponder, EJ Emanuel, Jameis Winston. Oh yeah, I know y'all's repertoire when it comes into it. And that's within the decade or 15 years. Brad Kaya, I think, was our highest drafted quarterback. He was a 5th rounder going to the Detroit Lions. That's how good I know my ish, right? Which is rare for college football because, it's not my ultra religious sport that I follow. But it can be fun because the whole thing about college football, Andrew may or may agree with me on this one or may not agree with me on this one. What you like about college football is usually kids are not playing for anything but school pride. Some of them are trying to make a future, but, sometimes it's for love of the game. Truthfully, that's how you can do anything college sport. You just label it for love of the game, right? If I was a pro, I'd be like, nah, I'm just going to take the money and run, right? But then we get Mario Cristobal, and he has a certain creature comforts. He like Tyler Van Dyke and everything like that. And, we have a couple of guys who are building into it. And the problem is I feel that the man always wants to just put his style play in his mouth. But what happens to catch people up to speed, all he had to do was just kneel the ball. That's it. Kneel the ball. Not try to pad stats, which is what he does. Not try to make the highlighted program, which is what he wants to do. Not always want to make every player, not every player that you have is going to be Heisman consideration or any of the other sub category trophies consideration, but he always has to do it. And the reason why I said it's a trap game, I'm like, I look at Georgia, I'm like, they seem scrappy. It's not like they're 0-16 like everything else Miami has played. Whereas like even Deion Sanders and his Colorado Buffaloes actually played, in theory, someone worth of any kind of ilk and repute in TCU and beat them. Unlike us, we beat Miami, Ohio. Yeah, we beat Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M. That was good. I felt that, but Jimbo was, Texas A&M had not been really doing that well in a long time since Fisher took over. And, it's debatable about whether he's actually good as a coach these days. Just saying. And then you have Bethune-Cookman, and then you had Temple. And that's when we were on the string of scoring more than 30 points. So when you get a team who was at that time like, it's 2-2, what can happen? 2-3, what can happen? I felt like it was a trap game. Like, we're going to rest on our laurels. We're going to forget the game plan. We were starting off slow. We were taking the lead, and then we ran the ball and they fumbled. And it's debatable, and this is the earnest supportive of me, debatable that there was actually a fumble, but the replay value, but it should never have led to that point. And the problem is the reason why we played like ass, number 8, is because he really wants, I feel, and I know, guys, I know the running game was not at its finest. I get that. However, I feel that he wants to just kind of like throw down the throats of Tyler Van Dyke and try to make him into a product of what he was doing in Oregon. Because I believe, if memory serves me right, who did Mario Cristobal have as a head coach? Oh, I'm sorry, not head coach. I'm getting at the stats to verify. As a star quarterback, possible Heisman. I feel like he had Justin Herbert.
Oh yes, Herbert. That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, that's the thing. Oregon does produce certain things because what Dexter 20, they had Willie Taggart in 2017. When did Herbert come into it? He remained his senior year because Willie got fired. So this is how in depth I have to be on this, guys. I have to verify because my memory's a little hazy.
Just give you a time frame. We're at 143 going in.
Don't worry. Don't worry about it coming into it. I have this in the bag coming into it. But Mario Cristobal wanted to continue production, so that's why Tyler Van Dyke throws 1 touchdown. That's why Tyler Van Dyke has 3 picks to come into it. He was there for 3 seasons, I believe, from 2019 until now. So he would have crossed over with Herbert, if I'm not mistaken. So all that being said is you want to institute these ideas, and then you want to be a clown, un payaso. He's Mr. Miami, man. There's many reasons why I can't stand Mario Cristobal. I think he's fake Miami attitude. Manny Diaz was good enough as it is, right? But, it was understandable why you let him go, right? But all this stuff that came in, there's a bigger reason why I can't deal with Mario Cristobal. He can love all his empanadas and his croquetas and his guabalita and everything about Ave Street and all that fun stuff. He can say that he likes Tootsies and Scarlets for all I care for. Not buying into it. He can say he's a big Flanagan's guy. Loves the rock and rib rolls. Y'all should eat it if you get a chance. It's fantastic. No. There's one thing I'm always going to remember. He's a sleeper cell. Because who is the ultimate evilist? Who is the devil of the world right now for Charles Trujillo? Joe Cronin. Where is Joe Cronin? GM of the Portland Trailblazers. What state is Portland? Oregon. Where was Mario Cristobal leaving? Oregon. They literally put me in the honeypot with this man to poison not just one thing I love, Damian Lillard, who's not with us now. He's over in Milwaukee. Now he's poisoning a college program and just destroying us from within. I can't stand it. The state of Oregon. You heard my rant last week, and you have found a way to character assassinate me in some way, shape, or form by destroying an easy win for the Miami Hurricanes. I don't even know if you would call it a character assassination, but God knows you're going to make me seem like a manic that's coming into it because I'm feeling like Charlie in the mailroom. Pepe Silva, go on here, Francisco. And yes, he had Herbert as his quarterback, but this is the conspiracy we're going. This is the grassy knoll subject, right? It's got to be something here. It wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald. Joe Cronin hurt me. He works in the state of Oregon. Mario Cristobal he loves Oregon. Probably loves Oregon. He's like, oh yeah, I got them Nikes, and I saw all this cool stuff coming in there. There's like ducks and stuff, and there's like that one favorite peony and that eucalyptus tree because Oregon has nothing in there. All right, guys, told you what I hope comes Oregon, and Mario Cristobal heard this from him because he understands, acknowledges the 37th, the Richard Nixon of sports podcasts. Like, oh, he can't talk about Oregon like that. Let's take this trap game, make it into a trap game. Let's lose this game, and let's not kneel the ball. He is bad as a coach. He is just lacking the tact of how to do things. We were going to lose to UNC. I'm almost confident we're going to lose to UNC this week. That's the prediction. They have been doing really good. Mike Brown's finally got it together. The guy who used to be, former coach of the Texans. I think it was Mike Brown. There's so many Mikes out there right now. I'm not fully situated. I have to check that. So yeah, Mac Brown. Sorry, not Mac Brown. My bad. Because I'm on a train of consciousness, and I knew it was Brown, but my brain's going and trying not to get over crazy into this. So I fell there. But Cristobal, along with Joe Cronin, in state of Oregon, you are on the public list. You're on my list. And this is, mind you, I had Al Golden as a coach. I didn't even feel this kind of energy. Brandon Shannon didn't feel this kind of energy. You know what I mean? Didn't feel that energy. I like Mark Ritt for what his work. He never, like, you talk about the Tennessee Titans of football. He was it felt like very, Jeff Fisher-ish, the way that Mark Rick wanted to kind of do things he's like Georgia. And like, it didn't work. But, Rick tried, coming into it. Manny, give or take, I don't have feelings on it. But Mario Cristobal, not a fan. State of Oregon, not a fan. Everything I said last week, I'm going to double down on it. I hope you have like a Republican governor for like the next 50 years. All the cool stuff that you guys are able to do there, ain't going to happen. Nikes, burn them. Let the labor laws come in and take it around. I wore Adidas when you guys saw me, mind yourself, Nikes. But that's beyond the point. Oregon, you know what? I hope Oregon State gets more traction than University of Oregon. That's the ultimate damification and bastardization. Now, I'm not saying that man, are we calling that a curse word? I'm thinking that's a demarcation of everything. But hey, I hate you, Mario Cristobal. And so I was, to give you the setting, because I had to go into character, but I'll give you the real setting. I'm literally like, oh, cool, we're going to win. And then I finished the pay-per-view and I see, I'm like, what? What the fuck is this nonsense? And it all just came out because I was on the chat with my buddy who is also another Hurricanes fan.
A few drinks in you.
Oh yeah. It was the libations were there, and it was the energy of, we just need to fire this man, but we can't because he's going to be utilizing his image and his recruits to kind of rebuild the program and everything like that. And I'm just like, I hate this. This is literally it feels like an arranged marriage. I just need to marry you to kind of stay here, and then we're good, and then we can be on our separate ways. I don't want to play out the next 3 years, Francisco. It hurts my soul. And that is as PG as I'll keep it going from there. So that's my Mario Cristobal rant.
Okay. Well,
sleeper cell. He's a sleeper cell.
Well,
call the government.
That was pretty contained compared to what I thought it was going to be. But all right. Well then, let's head on over to the petty train. So we'll go through each game in the NFL. And I'm going to go down this list. So first on this list I have here is the okay, this is the first one for whatever reason. All right, the Indianapolis Colts and the Baltimore. Wait, is this the right?
No, we played the Colts.
Oh, what am I looking at here? Whose list is this? CBS Sports.
You probably have this current week's.
Yeah, sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing.
I mean, I can go down the list if you.
Hold on. I got it now. Sorry. 1 second. There we go. Stupid app. Why the NFL app sucks? I don't know what they did. They changed it, but it sucks now.
I just use the Aspen app.
I know, but it used to be good, and then they made it horrible. The Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders.
Don't care.
Yeah.
Both teams are bad. You guys, I mean, good on DJ Moore. I bet the Panthers kind of feel stupid because, remember, they traded him away to get the number 1 pick for Bryce Young, but who's he going to throw it to? But so would be.
Yeah. The Jacksonville Jaguars and the Buffalo Bills.
What have we been talking trash about the Bills? They're not a complete team, and I don't think they could be. They're a team that you're no longer afraid to match up against. They might be in you guys, but you don't feel they feel like they can fall. They're not infallible.
They're flawed. Very.
I don't know how to read the Jaguars. My entire division, it's like it literally could be anybody but Houston right now.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Houston, they lost to the Falcons 21-19, and our favorite low brain quarterback had a pretty solid game. If you know,
I mean, it's Houston though, dude.
I know, but after calling him low brain, we got to give him his credit. Desmond Ridder threw for 329 yards and a touchdown.
Should I send him a gold star in the mail?
All right, let's move on before I say anything more.
Side note, they traded for what's his name? They traded for a wide receiver, Van Jefferson from the Rams, who I actually like. All these prospective wideouts, including Mecole Hardman, and we can't even call anybody for a 6th rounder. Please.
Next, the Detroit Lions beat the Carolina Panthers 42-24. Lions are hitting their stride. Would you look at that
on an 0-5 team? Look, you're beating the teams that you're supposed to beat.
But the Lions are actually beating teams that they're supposed to beat for the first. Like they actually have teams that they're supposed to beat. I think that's the real surprise here.
I think what happens is like, and I said it at the beginning of the season. I'll reiterate it. Y'all fell in love with them so much last year because they finished 9-7 that y'all forget they started out 1-6. I'm just saying. Like they're 4-1 now, and it's a long season. I mean, I like them.
They're very realistically they could go 0-8 to finish out the season. Yes.
Yeah.
But still, let's feel good story. Everybody likes the Lions. Who could hate?
Is it a feel good story if everybody's predicting it?
Alrighty. Yeah, it could still be. It could still be a feel good story. Okay, let's see. The New England Patriots got shut out 34-0 by the Saints.
Is it time?
So defend your pudgy white bread quarterback here, Charles.
Who is your best receiver?
Nobody. Devontae
Kendrick
Parker.
Bourne. Kendrick Bourne, who was like a wide receiver 3 in San Fran all those years ago, and Devontae Parker, who was the first. If you gave me he was a first round first round draft pick like 4 years ago, maybe I can eat that lore. But Devontae Parker's been in the league for a while. 9 years. Yeah. It is nothing crazy coming in. I don't see it. You have Hunter Henry in there. And look, I'm not saying that Mac Jones has a good plan, but they don't run the ball. That defense too is bad. There was turnovers. You got a couple of weeks ago, Bill O'Brien made me say, hey, Deshaun Watson, was the product of his benefit. And then I see Mac Jones play. I'm like, maybe Deshaun was better than Bill O'Brien. Then I realized they were just best together. They were Sonny and Cher, right? Well, actually, no, Cher had a great, I don't want to say Ike and Tina. All you need to know is maybe they were better together with Deshaun and O'Brien, but now neither of them are doing good on separate occasions. That's my defense of it. Like, he played bad, but you know what? Anybody can play bad, but have good games if they have something to work with.
Okay. All righty.
Broken clock is right twice a day.
The Steelers beat the Ravens.
I'm so sick of John Harbaugh. Like, literally, every year it's always like, I just see Niners in Baltimore.
That's a take that nobody really. Everybody talks about. Oh man, Mike Tomlin somehow finds a way. And they always complain about him, but they're not complaining about the other side of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's always we've done it for a while.
Yes, and I mean you have especially. I mean,
I think it's just because I'm very much enamored with Lamar. I think he's electric. I know he wasn't fantastic in this game, guys. Even your MVPs, they're always going to have off games that come from there. Also, Steelers defense is nothing to snuff about. It's Kenny Pickett, who unfortunately I had to see him play enough in Pitt. That wasn't really much of the benefit, but there was a lot of. It was a late touchdown by Pickens that kind of led it. There was a safety. The fourth quarter was hell. I'm going to read to you what happened. Justin Hill got a touchdown, field goals, safety, field goals, 41-yard field goal. I'm sorry, touchdown pass, and then a field goal. So it just kind of went nowhere. And Lamar, not his best game, 22-38, one pick, had 4 sacks, and he didn't run the ball that well. It's going to happen. And the idea was that he was supposed to have these players. The one thing I will say about the Ravens, though, can we just say OBJ's time has ended? because that was the whole thing talking about this offseason, that he's going to help out, he's going to do this. Until
Yeah.
I see what that consistent production would be, it's going to be a receiver by committee. And mind you, they're doing this all too with their lead back who tore his Achilles, whose now name escapes me because he's gone, so it doesn't matter to me. But remember how that all kind of came in. If it comes back to me, sure. Yeah. But every year, I'm like, oh yeah, I believe in Lamar. I think Harbaugh can do it, because if you've been in Baltimore for many years and you've been able to handle transition as coaches to new QBs, because he went from Joe Flacco to Lamar, and you got an MVP out of it and all this stuff. And now I'm just like, you know what? I'll have to go find another AFC select, because I never really put stock in the Chiefs, because I know Andy Reid has a propensity of just like screwing it up. You know what I mean? For all the championships Andy Reid has now, 2 out of 3 appearances of the Chiefs, y'all forget he went to the NFC Championship game 5 times and only got to the Super Bowl once. That's a fact in his time before he became the Chiefs coach.
Yep. Okay, the Bengals and the Cardinals. Cincinnati wins 34-20. And the Cardinals
Sure.
are a terrible team.
Sure.
Maybe just a game for the Bengals to get their groove back a little bit, right? Catch some of that mojo just a tiny bit. I don't know. Who knows? The Eagles beat the Rams 23-14.
I feel like the Rams are not a team I want to play if they get to the playoffs. I'm just saying. Between Cooper and Puka, and Stafford seems to be healthy. That defense is questionable, but that's a team where if they're fighting for a wild card spot, I just don't want none of that. I want none
especially
of
if
that.
they go into
J.K. Dobbins was the one that got hurt.
Going to playoffs with a hot streak. They're not winning their division, but they're going to go in as a wild card. And
they don't, and I don't even think they want to win their division.
Well, they can't. Not with San Francisco there. But,
I'll get to that in a second.
Well, the Jets beat the Broncos. Let's continue.
Petty Trim has to take a stop here.
Sean Payton.
If I may. All right. So in the beginning of our new season, I had equated that Sean Payton is my new Aaron Rodgers. I woke up one day and said, maybe he's just not good. And I saw the stats in front of me. I saw those majority seasons of the wins and everything like that. I have one friend who actually agrees with me, which is shocking. And of course, my friend who's a Saints fan is like, "You're the devil, Charles. Shut up." And this shows again too. Was it for years we were told that this was a good team, right? Oh, it was a good team, but they don't have the right coach and the right quarterback. Then they trade for the right quarterback. They get you a Russell Wilson, because remember they switched off Drew Lock and all that stuff. But it's a good defense. They had all these guys, and they traded those guys away too. They just traded Randy Gregory away for like peanuts coming into it. He went to San Fran. They gave you guys the defensive end whose name I forget, which I thought was a bad deal by you guys, but what can I say? Knew his name last week, don't remember this name this week because I never plan out for the petty trains. And now you get the coach, and now the coach is like, no, something's bad here. So which one is it? Is it your quarterback, who was your scapegoat last year, and that's the reason why you fired Nathaniel Hackett, who's the true scapegoat in your guys' eyes, which was a revenge game for him? Is it that has Russ been playing well, or is the fact that Russ has been playing behind the entire time? So he's not really, that's why his stats are a little bit juked out. You're sitting at 1-4, and I will call it the death sentence. And the problem is Sean Payton has his head up his own ass that he can't even 9, that he can't 10, that he can't even take the criticism from reporters anymore. Because the thing I will talk this is that, and maybe I am a little bit of a, an old school where I don't think coaches should really be running their mouths on anybody. It's the Bill Belichickian and me. But Sean Payton was going, Nathaniel Hackett. And look, no one was calling Nathaniel Hackett fantastic. Low brain coach, if we got. But one, he's not the one who told you hire Vance Joseph as your defensive coordinator when he wasn't doing it when he was the head coach of the Broncos and trying to do defensive calls. That's one. But two, he was talking that stuff saying, he wasted the potential of this. And then he apologized. And I say, the analyst got into me. No, you've been a coach longer than you've been an analyst. Let's see. And, Sean Payton doesn't strike me as a very respectful human being because Bountygate. Just saying. I know some people are like, it doesn't matter and everything, but I'm like, no. He lives in the American exceptionalism. It feels like, and the way he presents himself is I get an exception from this, and I'm better than you guys, and you know it. And he had to eat that humble pie, and then his whole thing, I think, on an interview was, I answered that already in the past. I'm not going to answer it again. He just feels like he wouldn't own up to it. And when you look at leadership, and you have coaches that have egos, that guys who are pending free agents are going to want to deal with it. And mind you, we get to defend my other white break quarterback in Zach Wilson, who played badly. It was Breece Hall who really kind of left up into it. And I don't know how much longevity Zach Wilson is going to have, but you guys really played him off into a pariah. He went 19 of 26, 1 interception. He had a couple of fumbles. He recovered one. But if you actually curate your plan to your quarterbacks like you're supposed to, take note, Mike LaFleur, then you might be successful in some things. Whereas Sean Payton doesn't curate anything for anybody. And now I feel like I'm getting closer to being correct because you have a 5-year contract and you're paid by the Waltons Group, right? Who own Walmart, very big. And I don't know how much time they're going to give you for a full-blown rebuild. I'm very interested to see if this big name, because you know what it reminds me of? And we're going to antiquate ourselves a little bit, right? It feels like Mike Ditka being a fantastic coach for the Bears and then going to the Saints, doing like the Ricky, Williams kind of trade, even though Payton did nothing of that sort because he didn't trade all the stuff with the Broncos, but being impotent and ineffective and was resting on some laurels. Look how we just grouped that in together. That's the petty.
Yeah. All right. The Chiefs and the Vikings. 27-20. Chiefs win.
I feel bad for the Vikings because that offense to me is titillizing and tantalizing, and that defense was a problem last year. It's a problem again. There's consequences of bad defenses, and that's it. That's all I can say about that. Chiefs have some problems, but they'll figure it out.
All righty. The Dolphins and the Giants.
Ugh. Is Daniel Jones going to be in a wheelchair by the end of the season? He's going to go like full Christopher Reeves, man. Like another coach who just rested on his laurels because he won Coach of the Year when he shouldn't have. That should have gone to so many other different coaches. In Brian Dabble, aren't you supposed to scheme for an offensive line, how to put some ideas in there? Did you spend first-round draft picks on Evan Neal and then Andrew Thomas? Didn't you sign some guys to protect your quarterback? I feel bad for him at one point. I'm not going to defend him. He's on the same draft class, but you can't do much. And he got the neck injury. We don't know of a singer. They had to put Tyrod Taylor in. At this point, just run the ball or punt the ball because I don't think you give anyone enough protections. He got sacked like 10 or 11 times against the Seahawks, sacked again with the Dolphins. I remember you were watching the game just craning your head like, please let us lose the Giants so I could be petty. And that wasn't going to happen whatsoever.
No. Yeah, and I don't really have much to say. Dolphins should have won this game. They did. There you go.
Devin Achane or whatever his name is, Achu.
Yeah.
He's hurt.
He got hurt. He did very well in the game, but he got hurt. So, but you know what? Dolphins running game is still pretty good with Mostert, so shouldn't be that big of a deal.
Gives Jeff Wilson a opportunity. I will say this though. I think Tua. There needs to be some concern I have because he is too reliant on Hill having exceptional games. So when I talk about he had 2 interceptions, but when I talk about exceptional games, I'm talking about like it is uncommon for a wide receiver to have 181 yards receiving. Just saying. On 8 receptions. I didn't watch the full game, but Tyreek already has 651 yards. We're going into like week 6, man. And he is being
he was injured towards the end of the last season because of overuse. Hear me out. The season opener, he had 215 yards receiving. Unheard of. Exceptional. 40 in the game against New England, that was close. 157 against Denver when y'all dropped 70 damn points. 58 in your loss to Baltimore, then 181. It is at some point going to catch up, and someone's going to scheme properly. And so what is Tua, who is supposed to be Mr. Accurate, because all I heard was he can toss a ball through the keyhole. I think it's what Brian Dabble said. But he's not producing around to Jalen Waddle, who was targeted 10 times, but only was able to get 5 times, or Cedric Wilson only got it 4 times, 52 yards. How are you going to do that if they get Tyreek? Because I think truthfully, to get 9 targets, get 8 receptions on those 9 targets, and get 181 yards is an anomaly. Even though he's been doing it multiple times, what are you going to do as an offense? Because you got to ride this momentum, got to ride this high. But that's a little bit of concern I would have in your group here. All right. The 49ers beat the Cowboys.
Okay. Both Dak and McCarthy are not going to be there. That's for sure. I'll tell you that now. I feel confident to it. Yeah. And some people might say, well, why would you do it with Dak? Because the idea is, can you get something better? And that's the question you ask yourself. And with McCarthy, this is a long time coming. We understand they give him patience. It's been 3 years. It's doing whatever. We know what he's doing half the time, how he runs his plays, but he can't get Tony Pollard going. CD Lamb isn't really popping up in anything. It doesn't seem like a well-constructed team. And I'm not saying Jerry should blow it up at that point, but I don't think Jerry can stop himself. I think he got spurned from Brad Garrett too much. Or Jason Garrett. I'm thinking Brad Garrett because I'm thinking of Everybody Loves Raymond. But, I can see that. Yeah, sure. They don't look the same, but I feel like Jason Garrett, if you ever talk, is just as blind as Brad Garrett's character in Everybody Loves Raymond. And then with the 49ers, I don't know if Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. He's playing excellent right now. I think that their CMC is the straw that stirs the shake, right? Get that going and build into it.
Same thing we've said for the last few weeks now.
What is Purdy going to be when he gets a team that stops the run? That's what I want to see.
Because that's San Francisco's bread and butter more than anything else.
But take note for teams to have Jordan Loves, Daniel Joneses, all these young quarterbacks as well, or these quarterbacks you're giving a start. If
white bread quarterbacks.
Mac Jones, if you curate the offense to the T, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch were like, we can make this work with Purdy. They gave away, Trey Lance and let Jimmy G go. And they're like, we can do this if we curate it with the best players we have in the right scheme with the right understanding, actually coaching. There's always possibilities. Yeah. That's what Bill Belichick did with Tom Brady for such a long time. People will fight me on that, but everybody's like, well, he can't win without Tom, and Tom won one without him, I'm sure. But he also had Bruce Arians, who at that time was a good coach. And you look at the weapons that Tom had. But
and that defense,
you curate it. And that just that's just my statements to it. Yeah. I don't know. But if Purdy gets hurt, you're on the Sam Darnold show, baby.
All right. Packers and Raiders. Raiders win 17-13.
Oh, didn't even care for it.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention. I know the Golden Knights brought the Stanley Cup over. That was the only thing I remember.
I have literally not watched football in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I watched highlights, but it's like, no.
I saw a sliver of the Titans game through the window at Bodega. So there you go. The Titans lose to the Colts. That's the last game.
I got 2 statements on it, and then we could be done with this nonsense. Mm-hmm. DeAndre Hopkins, 140 yards. It's a miracle. That's the first time forever one of our wideouts had past 100 yards. Why? The same thing of why I criticized the Jets for not having a proper backup to Aaron Rodgers when they're concerned about Zach Wilson could be us because Traylon Burks is hurt. So how do we have our big free agent signee and our number 1 pick who's been out the last 2 games? What do we have to work with it? Who are our options? How are we building into it? Not everything. And we're losing games I feel like we could win. And we lost the Colts, but it's fine, I guess. I'll just accept it because we're losing some close ones, man. 24-16, as I think this game we lost 15-16 to the Saints. We beat the Chargers. We beat the Bengals. We're beating good teams. We're losing to teams that are debatable. We'll see. Get it together, Vrabel. And then when it comes to the Colts, Shelv Richardson, he is hurt. Guy was out with concussion. Now he's spraining his AC joint. Run with what you have.
Yeah, with especially if that's your quarterback of the future, then why not, right?
Well, but it goes back to what I said. I said it last week, and I'll say it again. Mike Shanahan gave carte blanche to these coaches to just run guys down to ground. And I forgot who we were talking. It was a different quarterback too, right?
Yeah. All right, Charles. Yeah, there we go. It's back.
I got 2 emotions.
Two, ecstatic-y right now.
Oh, you're good now.
You smacked it pretty good.
I am mature. I'm not gonna say that's what she said, or he said. Right. The progressive.
Oh, now it's really staticky.
Really?
Yeah. Don't know what you did.
Better?
No, not really. It's even worse.
I'm just touching the.
Okay, right now. That's okay. Right, wherever you're doing right now is good. Should we head over to the cage?
Yeah, we can keep it short because this is gonna be an interesting thing. Welcome everybody. Your weekly Trueplex the Cage with Charles. Remember, wrestling is not fake. It's scripted. It's a stage fight. It's a song and dance. It's poetry, emotion. It's men and women trying to beat the holy hell of each other, establish their legacies, chase championships, and do everything great and in between. We change it every now and then. So right now, as we speak, I have been going back and forth on both NXT and AEW's Dynamite because with the playoffs, they have been preempted. So instead of Wednesday Night Dynamite, we're back to Tuesday Dynamite for this one exception only to go against NXT. So they're both going all in. And I'm going back and forth and watching everything. And it's just It's just fine. When wrestling is competitive and it's hot, then the business is booming. So this is gonna be a very short cage because we're just gonna talk about Fastlane essentially, because nothing's really going on. It's what's happening in AEW is happening literally now, and New Japan, all that stuff. I feel like we can get to that to next week. So I watched Fastlane. I wasn't gonna watch it, and then I found out I had off on Columbus Day, which was a lie because I did actually have to go and do things into the office. But hey, I didn't have to really do much, so fine. I treated myself, and I got some tacos. I got the good alcohol. I got myself some rum, and I was like, "All right, kids, we're gonna make this a good event and go from there, and we're gonna have a good time." And I had like 3 tacos, and I had the chorizo bites from Taco Shack. It was just scrum diddly-umptious. The pay-per-view itself for Fastlane, C plus. And that's a good thing because not everything is going to be perfect. And, we were in the cooler period. It was really like the last minute decision for me to watch this. So, um, we'll run down the matches. Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso defeated the Judgment Day. Cody and Jey won in a very good match. I'm not even mad about it because I know my whole thing is like, ugh, I can't stand Cody. But how it all led to is that there was some discourse in the Judgment Day. JD McDonough, who has been kind of kissing ass, 11 trying to join the Judgment Day, hit the Money in the Bank briefcase on Damian Priest's knee, and that get buckled out. So Cody hit the crossroads, and then Finn was all by himself. And then Jay and Cody hit the finisher and go from there. And I can get behind it. What's great to take away from it, and I believe I sent to the chat, was Cody and Jay's like post conference, because I guess Cody said they had some libations, so they were just probably lit up like a lamp, answering questions, just saying yeet and doing the silly stuff. But that's how you build baby faces, right? If you're giving them a unfiltered kind of perception in a press conference without having to have a live audience go what or CM Punk or huh or anything like that or yeah to interrupt, then you can get some character inside as scripted. So it was good. The match was very good in my opinion. It took around 20 minutes to get there. Next match was LWO, Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar versus Bobby Lashley and Street Profits, Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford. And then Carlito, who used to be a wrestler for WWE 20 years ago, who came back, I believe, during Royal Rumble, who was there in Backlash in Puerto Rico, because that's where he's from, to help out Mr. Malo Bunny, the Bad Bunny, in his match against Damian Priest. Y'all need to watch it. It was just fantastic. Was there, and Carlito and the LWO won. He came in for like a brief 5 minutes interval, hit the backstabber and pinned Montez. The match was just meh. Nothing crazy. Nothing great. Io Sky defeated Charlotte Flair and Asuka in a triple threat to retain her WWE Women's Championship match. It could have been better. There was a lot of botches. It felt like everybody was kind of out of sync, and it was surprising with the 3 people that you have there. Maybe they didn't. It was last minute production. Maybe they just weren't vibing. The crowd at some point hit. We're saying like this is awesome, everything like that. I don't know. I felt like it had lost a lot of momentum. Ends with Asuka or Charlotte getting pinned by Io, who did a moonsault as Charlotte was hitting the figure 8 on Asuka. Sounds like a tongue twister. It's all in one sequence. It's okay. But generally speaking, I expected more production. I do see Io and Charlotte are probably going to feud a little bit. That's fine. I guess Charlotte just can't feud without a title, but who am I? I don't book these things. John Cena, LA Knight versus the semi-bloodline. What would you call the? We'll call them the arteries, because there's no Roman, because it's just Jimmy and Solo Sikoa going in there. I haven't caught you guys up on what the story is, but I think they're trying to just figure out the story of Jimmy Uso. Because remember, Jimmy betrayed. They left the bloodline, Jimmy and Jay. Then Jimmy betrayed Jay at SummerSlam. Jay quit, quotation marks, right? Quit, but went to Raw. And Jimmy has been trying to get back into the bloodline. I think the story is that he sees a vacant seat because Roman's hardly on TV these days. Like, he hasn't been on TV or defended his title. So his whole thing is like, well, I'm going to be the interim here. I'm going to be the acting tribal chief since no one's going to step up and Roman's not going to be here. But he's doing it in a goofy way that cracks me up. But I think some progressions might lead to Jimmy versus Roman, which is fine if you're going to do it right, because Jimmy has to take it seriously when Jay took it seriously. I just don't know how that end result coming in. Well, actually, I know how you do the end result, where Jay could have been the one who is worthy to beat Roman. Jimmy just gets annihilated. I think that sends a message. And then you bring on the Don. Side note, I think so. Cody and Jay won the tag team titles, right? They're the undisputed tag team titles. It goes to both Raw and SmackDown, my belief. And I think a lot of people know this, but I have to put it out there to air it out. is that when Jey Uso got traded to Raw, Cody's rights were traded to SmackDown. Got to put some believability in this, right? So it hasn't been announced yet because it's not going to be announced until they finally lose the tag belts and that they're going to both brands. And he's saying, well, here's the thing. I am on SmackDown now. And that's how you can get Cody versus Roman part 2. Do I want that match again? No. Not regular because there's going to be interference. I want a stipulation, whether it be a ladder match or a best 2 out of 3. I don't know. Let's figure out. Let's go from there. But John Cena, LA Knight, this is John Cena's kind of full-time run that he has for the next 8 weeks or so. Match was fine. They did smart. They're going to build Knight up a little bit. He'll probably contest at some point against Roman, either at Crown Jewel or Survivor Series. We'll figure that out. But the crowd's behind Knight. My paralegal's not a fan of him. I'm indifferent to him, but here's the thing. I do believe you need to give new guys chances if the crowd's behind them, because it isn't about moving merchandise, it isn't about building new stars, it isn't about having some reason to watch the show. So let them test it out. Let's see what we get out of it. Let's have fun with it. Let's get freaky deaky with it, right? They waited until last minute. LA Knight was able to get the hot tag, came in. They end up pinning Jimmy. And then now Jimmy and Solo are afraid of what's going to happen because Roman is supposed to be coming back on Friday. So how are we going to deal with the fact that in his absence, the bloodline keeps losing, right? It's like the mama who comes home and says, didn't I tell you to take out the chicken from to thaw it out and put it on the stove? And you find out they didn't do anything, but they took a fat nap. Right? That's the energy. That's the thought process that we go from there. And then the main event, which was muy bueno. Seth Rollins versus Shinsuke Nakamura part 2. Remember last pay-per-view at Payback, they fought, and then I thought Shin was actually possibly, maybe in a small sliver way, going to win, and then Seth just beats him out of nowhere. Well, this one was a last standing match, and man, it was a good last standing match. They just went straight for it. They didn't try to wrestle each other. They didn't try to get technical. They went for the violence. They went for the weapons. And they did that for about 28 minutes or so. There were some good-ass spots where Shin had sprayed the mist into Seth's eyes and pushed him off the ladder onto the announce table. You think that stopped him? No. They had done, Shinsuke brought the nunchucks. I think I sent you that clip. And I was like, oh, damn, be violent with this, sir, right now. And it all ends with a Falcon Arrow through the table. And remember, in wrestling, a table is going through a table is essentially the Mike Tyson knockout. You got popped a couple of times, then comes the uppercut, and that's it. It is literally the death sentence that happens. I loved it. I thought it was great. I think it was an engaging, interesting way to build in some last man standing matches because some of them are just terrible and some of them are really good. And I think that's impressive. But what is to come for the future, because I mentioned that a little bit in the EO title defense, is Seth and Drew is going to happen at Crown Jewel. And Drew's in the middle of a heel turn right now, but it's not really a heel turn. It's more like, y'all want to support Jey Uso, who screwed us all over. Why? I don't want that. I'm not going to be the nice guy anymore. And he looks at Seth and says, well, you know what? I also want your title too. And I'm like, yes, I get this. You're just calling it like it is. You're being straight up. You're saying, why you guys love this guy now when he screwed us over? Locker room. And you know what, audience? You're going to see why I'm better than this guy. That's what it's about. You're establishing both your legacy and try to get the title. And what's important about Drew is, remember, he's a 2-time champion during what? The pandemic era. The man was never able to win or defend his main championship when he was the WWE champion in front of a live crowd. And he tried his best to, carry the show during the pandemic era. Pandemic era was a very weird time in the WWE for all of wrestling. But I think I've always liked Drew as a heel. The babyface stuff doesn't work because he's very, just simple in that sense. It wasn't my cup of tea. But now if we're going to bring in the idea where I'm like, I'm not a bad guy, I'm a good guy, I just want to be one thing, champion, I'm like, I get behind that. Because sometimes wrestling needs to be the soap opera. But what wrestling can be in the combat sports is just kind of like how you treat boxing a little bit, where it's like, these are just the best work rate guys. The best work rate guys, not the biggest talkers, the promoters, but the work rate guys who pop on the best matches, don't really need a tune-up match, and they just go and defend their championships and try to unify and try to go from there. I can get behind that. The Mickey War, Arturo Gatti, the welterweight divisions coming into it. The Canelo Alvarez's, right, where there's not a lot of big talks coming in. Not everybody has the Floyd Money Mayweather that has to sell a story to it, even though I do love me some Floyd. And look, he was one of the richest boxers out there because he got you to buy the pay-per-views. But I think that's how I kind of make that light distinguishment for combat sports and wrestling, even though Endeavor wants UFC fans to be WWE fans and vice versa. No, I think we all hate each other in that cross brand. And that's all I got for you this week on The Cage.
Okay. Well, we are out. It's 2 hours and 19 minutes. I think we are done, and the Orioles are done too.
Yes. Who is right about the AL East?
Me.
Me.
Well, bye everybody.
Take care.